Tonight, we're diving into the full history of the founders of Hogwarts and how they shaped the wizarding world. This is a fascinating topic, but I'll keep my narration calm to ensure you can still drift off to sleep. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment night 1. Now back to the video. Imagine a world where magic was not a secret kept behind hidden brick walls or invisible barriers, but a dangerous burden that could cost you your life. 1,000 years ago, the wind howling across the Scottish Highlands carried more than just the scent of pine and heather. It carried the weight of a desperate dream. We often think of Hogwarts as a permanent fixture of the landscape, a timeless fortress of education that has always existed, but there was a time when it was nothing more than a shared vision between 4 of the most powerful individuals to ever walk the earth. These 4 legends, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin, did not just build a school. They constructed a sanctuary in an age of fire and fear. They lived in a century where to be different was to be hunted, and to possess magic was to live with a target on your back. Yet in the midst of this persecution, they came together to do the impossible. But what really happened in those early days? We know the names, we know the houses, and we know the colours that adorn the Great Hall. But the true story of the founders is one of profound friendship, a bitter betrayal, and a legacy that was nearly destroyed by the very people who created it. We are told that they worked in harmony for years, but how does such a monumental alliance crumble into a rivalry that would define the wizarding world for the next 10 centuries? The stones of Hogwarts hold secrets that go far deeper than the Chamber of Secrets. They hold the echoes of a time when the 4 greatest witches and wizards of the age had to decide what it truly meant to be a wizard. Was magic a gift for all who possessed it, or was it a privilege to be guarded by the few? The stakes of this story are nothing less than the soul of the magical community itself. Every time a young student puts on the sorting hat, they are not just being placed in a dormitory. They are being judged by the lingering consciousness of 4 people who have been dead for 1,000 years. The values these founders held, courage, loyalty, wisdom, and ambition, were not just personality traits. They were the pillars they believed would keep their society standing. However, those same pillars eventually became the fault lines that threatened to tear the school apart. When we look at the artifacts they left behind, the sword, the cup, the diadem, and the locket, more than just historical relics, the physical manifestation of their greatest hopes and their darkest failures. These items were meant to inspire and protect, yet 3 of them would eventually be twisted into instruments of ultimate evil, serving a dark wizard who claimed to be the true heir of their legacy. The mystery of the founders is wrapped in the mists of time. Why did Rowena Ravenclaw dream of a warty hog leading her to a cliffside? What was the true nature of the bond between Helga and Rowena, often described as the closest of friends? And how did they navigate the growing darkness in Salazar's heart? We often hear of the rift between Gryffindor and Slytherin as a simple clash of personalities, but it was a fundamental disagreement about the future of humanity. It was a war of philosophy that never truly ended. Even now, the echoes of Salazar's departure and the monster he left behind in the dark continue to haunt the corridors. We have to wonder, was the school ever truly safe, or was it built on a foundation of secrets that were always meant to be uncovered? As we begin this journey, we must strip away the modern comforts of the Hogwarts we know today, forget the moving staircases for a moment, and look at the raw, cold stone of the 10th century. Look at the 4 individuals standing on the edge of the Black Lake, looking up at a cliffside where they would build a monument to survival. This is not just a history of a building, it is a history of an ideal. It is the story of how 4 brilliant minds tried to create a utopia and ended up creating a legend that would outlast them all, for better or for worse. Tonight, we travel back to the age of the founders to see how their brilliance, their pride, and their ultimate falling out shaped every wand flick and every potion stir in the centuries that followed. Let us step through the doors of the past and discover the true origins of the wizarding world. In the 10th century, Europe drowned in shadows where magic was not a gift, but a death sentence. Muggles, gripped by fear and superstition, hunted witches and wizards with a ferocity that scarred the land itself. Villages turned on their own, accusing neighbours of curses when crops failed or children fell ill. Flames roared in town squares, consuming the accused alive, their screams echoing as warnings to any who dared whisper a spell. This was the Burning Times, a relentless purge that claimed countless lives, forcing magical folk to flee into forests, mountains, and forgotten hollows. Torches lit the night, pyres stacked high with kindling soaked in oil, the air thick with smoke, and the stench of charred flesh. No mercy for the gifted, only iron chains, ducking stools plunged into icy rivers, and stones hurled by mobs, chanting prayers twisted into hatred. Amid this terror, 4 extraordinary figures emerged as beacons in the gloom. Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. They stood as the greatest witches and wizards of their age, masters of arts that could bend reality, yet even they could not stand openly against the tide of persecution. Gryffindor, with his unyielding bravery, had once duelled dark beasts in Godric's Hollow, his sword flashing like lightning. Hufflepuff, from the broad valleys, wove charms that sustained entire communities through famine. Her loyalty, a quiet force. Ravenclaw, dwelling in the glens of the Scottish Highlands, unravelled the deepest mysteries of the mind, her wit sharper than any blade. Slytherin, from the misty fens, commanded serpents and shadows, his cunning forged in survival, but the Burning Times broke even them. Gryffindor watched his village burn, Muggle pitchforks gleaming under moonlight as they dragged his kin to the flames. Hufflepuff buried friends in shallow graves, their bodies twisted from torture, vowing never again to reveal her gifts. Ravenclaw's towers fell to sieges, her libraries torched while she escaped with scrolls clutched to her chest. Slytherin, scarred deepest by Muggle betrayal, slithered through reeds as his family faced the pyre, whispering Parseltongue to summon allies from the depths. Persecution stripped their homes, their safety, their very visibility. They vanished into hiding, Gryffindor in rugged wilds, Hufflepuff in earthen burrows, Ravenclaw among cloud-shrouded peaks, Slytherin in watery lairs, living as ghosts, spells muffled, wands concealed beneath cloaks, stained with mud and blood. Whispers travelled through enchanted owls, and hidden missives, tales of survival binding them across distances. They knew isolation bred extinction. Young witches and wizards, born with sparks of power, were discovered too late, betrayed by accidental magic, a floating cup, a burst of light, and fed to the fires. The 4 greatest could not let magic die in silence. Deep in the Scottish Highlands, under a moon veiled by storm clouds, they converged in secrecy. Rain lashed ancient oaks, thunder masking their footsteps as they slipped into a cavern carved by glaciers, its walls dripping with moisture that mirrored their resolve. There, in that secret meeting, they forged a pact that changed the course of magical history forever. No records name the exact hour, but the air hummed with possibility as Gryffindor's voice boomed against stone, calling for a sanctuary. Hufflepuff's gentle hands sketched plans for endless halls of warmth and welcome. Ravenclaw's eyes gleamed, mapping enchantments to shield the sight eternally. Slytherin nodded, his ambition channeling into hidden defences no Muggle could breach. They vowed to build a castle, invisible to the world, where magic could thrive unchecked. A school for the young, a fortress against oblivion. That night birthed Hogwarts, rising from persecution's ashes. Yet questions lingered in the damp echoes of that cavern, pulling at the edges of their unity. What dream guided Ravenclaw to the perfect cliffside? A warty hog snorting through her visions. Up next in Chapter 2, the dream of Rowena Ravenclaw reveals how one woman's subconscious unlocked the heart of wizarding education and why it nearly unravelled everything before the stones were even laid. As the flames of the burning times licked at the edges of their world, forcing those 4 extraordinary witches and wizards deeper into concealment, Rowena Ravenclaw found solace not in flight, but in the quiet depths of her own mind. She was a woman of the glen, her spirit as sharp and unyielding as the highland winds that shaped her homeland. In those shadowed nights, when Muggle torches cast long, menacing glows across the valleys, Rowena turned to dreams for guidance, her intellect weaving visions that others dismissed as mere fancy. One such dream gripped her with an otherworldly clarity, unfolding like a tapestry spun from prophecy itself. There, within the velvet hush of sleep, a warty hog appeared before her, its bristled hide glistening under a pale moon. This was no ordinary beast. Its eyes held the gleam of ancient knowing, and it snorted softly, beckoning her onward through mist-shrouded moors. Rowena followed without question, her bare feet silent on the dew-kissed earth, the hog leading her northward, past jagged peaks that clawed at the sky until they reached the wild embrace of the Scottish Highlands. The air grew crisp, laced with the tang of pine and lochwater, and the hog paused at the brink of a sheer cliff, overlooking a vast, glassy lake that mirrored the stars. Awakening with her heart pounding, Rowena knew this was no idle reverie. It was a divine summons, a map etched in her subconscious to the place where magic could flourish unseen. Compelled by that vision, Rowena set out at dawn, her raven cloak billowing like wings as she traversed the rugged terrain. The journey wound through heather-cloaked hills and glen-shadowed passes, where the ground trembled faintly underfoot from the earth's hidden pulse. Days blurred into nights under relentless skies, the hog's image her constant companion, urging her past roaring burns and ancient standing stones that whispered forgotten spells. She forded icy streams that numbed her legs, climbed slopes slick with rain, her mind alive with possibilities. Whispers of Muggle hunters trailed her at times, their crude iron blades no match for her subtle charms of misdirection. But the dream's pull was stronger, drawing her inexorably to that cliffside revelation. When she arrived, the sight revealed itself in breathtaking perfection, a towering escarpment plunging into the Great Lake, its waters deep and unyielding, fed by subterranean springs that bubbled with latent magic. This was no accident of geography. The lake's immense depth, plunging over 100 feet in places, formed a natural moat, its cold currents a barrier that repelled all but the most determined intruders. Muggles, with their fear of deep waters and superstitions of selkies and kelpies, would steer clear, their boats splintering on hidden reefs or vanishing into fogs Rowena could enchant at will. The cliff provided sheer, unassailable walls, honeycombed with caves that begged to be expanded into grand halls, while the surrounding highlands offered dense forests for cover and peaks that channeled defensive winds. Surrounded by the forbidden forest's encroaching wildness to the south, the location was a fortress ordained by nature itself, invisible to those below, its isolation ensuring that young witches and wizards could learn without the terror of persecution. Rowena stood there for hours, tracing the lake's glassy expanse with her eyes, feeling the sight's pulse sync with her own, a place where the castle could root itself, eternal and impregnable. With the others soon converging, Godric from his hollow, Helga from her broad valley, Salazar from the fens, Rowena's vision became their shared foundation. But it was her architectural genius that truly breathed life into the stone. Rowena, whose mind rivaled the stars in its vastness, sketched the initial blueprints by one light on parchment, weathered by highland gales. She envisioned not a static keep, but a living edifice where staircases shifted like thoughts in flight. These moving staircases, her crowning innovation, were born from her study of air currents and levitation charms, their treads enchanted to glide silently on invisible tracks woven from transfigured spider silk and phoenix feathers. One blueprint detailed a grand flight spiralling from the Great Hall to the Astronomy Tower, detaching mid-ascent to ferry the bold to hidden alcoves, only to reform with a whisper for the next traveller. Another mapped a labyrinthine set in the West Wing, steps that pivoted on fulcrums of perpetual motion spells, teaching students adaptability as they navigated the castle's moods. Rowena layered in raven motifs, beaked gargoyles that observed and adjusted the paths, ensuring no two journeys were alike. Her designs accounted for the lake's mists rising through shafts, cooling the stone and powering minor enchantments, while the cliff's acoustics amplified warning echoes from approaching threats. This was no mere shelter, it was a mind-made manifest, challenging every occupant to think, to anticipate, to evolve with its ever-changing heart. As the founders gathered amid the roar of the lake winds, pooling their talents to raise the first turrets from the rock, Rowena's dream had woven them into destiny's fabric. Yet even then, subtle tensions simmered beneath the harmony, hints of divides that would one day fracture their unity. But for now, the warty hog's prophecy held sway, birthing a school that would stand for centuries. In the next chapter, Godric Gryffindor, the warrior from the Hollow, and you'll discover the fearless blade that forged the school's spirit amid blood and fire, what drove this lion-hearted founder to clash with destiny itself, and how his legacy still gleams in the darkest hours. As the mists of the Scottish Highlands settled over that cliffside chosen by Rowena's prophetic dream, with the Great Lake's glassy expanse forming a natural moat against intruders, a lone figure emerged from the heather-choked paths. Godric Gryffindor, born in the wild moors of ancient England, carried the scars of a land where wind howled like banshees, and the ground itself seemed to swallow the unwary. Those moors stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of peat bogs and tors where Muggle warlords roamed with iron blades and torches, hunting witches and wizards like vermin. Godric learned to move like a shadow among the gorse bushes. His first spells not flashy bursts of light, but subtle charms to muffle footsteps or bend the fog into shields. By his teens, whispers spread through hidden wizarding camps. A duelist unmatched, who faced down Muggle knights in single combat and left them disarmed without a single killing curse. He earned his title as the world's greatest duelist, not through parlour tricks or endless incantations, but in the raw fury of those moors. Picture the scene, a full moon casting silver on the dew-slick grass, Godric circling a hulking Muggle baron, whose armour gleamed with stolen wizard gold. The baron swung a broadsword heavy enough to cleave stone, but Godric parried with wand flicks that turned the air to whipcord, then closed in with a dagger etched in runes. One duel after another, from misty dawn skirmishes to midnight ambushes, Ace built his legend. Wizards sought him out for training. Muggles feared his name as the Hollow Ghost, for he hailed from Godric's Hollow, a secluded vale cradled in those moors where his family had eked out a defiant existence for generations. Yet Godric's philosophy ran deeper than mere skill with blade or wand. He preached that true wizards must be brave at heart, a creed forged in the crucible of Muggle persecution. In an age when hiding meant slow death by starvation or betrayal, bravery wasn't recklessness, it was survival. To cower invited the pitchfork mobs, to fight back demanded a heart unyielding as moorstone. He taught young witches and wizards that courage meant charging into the fray when flames licked the tree line, shielding the weak with your body while your spells shattered shields. It was this inner fire that separated the living from the ashes of the burning times, a mechanism honed by necessity. The brave heart rallied allies, outwitted hunters, and turned terror into triumph. Godric lived it, dueling not for glory, but to carve safe hollows where magic could breathe. His most prized possession embodied that philosophy, the silver sword, goblin forged in the flickering forges deep beneath the earth. Why would a wizard, master of the wand's infinite power, carry a blade at all? In those brutal days, muggles swarmed with numbers, their crude iron impervious to some spells, their fanaticism shrugging off hexes like rain. Godric sought something unyielding, a weapon that drank magic like a sponge and grew stronger in worthy hands. Goblins, those cunning smiths exiled to caverns, he crafted it from enchanted silver, metal that never dulled, that absorbed spells to fuel its edge, slicing through armour as if it were parchment. The forging was no simple transaction. Godric ventured into goblin warrens, past traps of illusory gold and venomous steam, bartering with Ragnuk the First himself. The goblins demanded a price beyond gold, a vow of fairness in wizard dealings, and a share of victories won. In their fires, hammered with spells of ruby and strength, the blade took shape, a broadsword with a hilt of ruby-studded leather, its blade humming faintly when bravery stirred nearby. Godric wielded it first against a muggle warband, torching a wizard hamlet. The sword cleaved through 12 foes before the rest fled screaming of demon fire. It chose him, as it would choose others, appearing from the Sorting Hat's depths to aid the pure of heart. With sword at his side, Godric scouted the Highland site Rowena had revealed, his duelist's eye measuring defences. The lake's chill currents to drown pursuers, the cliffs to funnel attackers into kill zones. He cleared the land himself, dueling spectral guardians left by ancient clans and banishing rogue kelpies from the depths. When the other founders arrived, they found the ground consecrated by his blood and magic, ready for the castle's rise. Godric's vision shaped the school's heart. He insisted no child with magic in their veins be turned away, regardless of blood or timidity. Bravery could be kindled like embers to flame. His house would honour fire, the element of passion and purge, its common room crackling with hearth glow and lion banners rippling in phantom winds. Yet even as stones rose under their combined spells, shadows of division loomed, testing that brave heart. But holding the founders together through those early tempests was a witch whose quiet strength bound them like unbreakable charms. Coming up in Chapter 4, Helga Hufflepuff, the glue of the Four, discover how her unyielding loyalty and hidden talents kept the dream alive, when egos clashed and the world outside bayed for their blood. Godric Gryffindor's unyielding courage forged a shield against the Muggle hunters stalking the moors. But even the greatest duelist knew survival demanded more than sword and spell alone. It called for a steady hand to bind the vision together. He's someone whose warmth could nurture the fragile sparks of magic in every child they found. That someone was Helga Hufflepuff, hailing from the Valley Broad, a lush cradle of rolling hills and whispering winds where ancient earth magic pulsed through the soil like a hidden heartbeat. She arrived at the cliffside castle, not on a broomstick or through shadowed portals, but on foot, her robes dusted with the rich loam of her homeland, carrying bundles of herbs and enchanted vines that seemed to writhe with quiet life. Helga's mastery of ancient charms set her apart, even among these titans of wizardry. These were not the flashy hexes of jewels or the intricate wards of hidden glens, but forgotten incantations drawn from the earth's own rhythms, charms that coaxed stone to soften under weary feet, that wove threads of sunlight into tapestries that mended themselves at dusk, and that summoned breezes heavy with the scent of blooming meadows to soothe fevered brows. She murmured words in tongues, long faded from common grimoires, binding the castle's foundations with spells that made the very rocks hum in harmony, ensuring the structure grew stronger with every storm that battered the highlands. What truly defined Helga, though, was her unshakable belief in the boundless potential woven into every magical soul. In an age when muggles torched villages for the crime of a glowing wand tip, and witches and wizards huddled in caves rationing their gifts like stolen gold, Helga refused to turn away any magical child. Why draw lines in the dirt when magic itself knew no such barriers? She had seen it firsthand in her Valley Broad, a squib's daughter whose accidental sparks lit the hearth brighter than any pure-blood air, a half-blood boy whose clumsy levitations uprooted ancient oaks. To Helga, talent bloomed not from bloodlines, but from loyal hearts and calloused hands willing to toil. She argued fiercely in those early council fires that excluding any child meant starving the school of its richest soil, those overlooked blooms that, with patient tending, yielded the sturdiest spells. Her radical notion of inclusivity wasn't born of naive kindness, but hard-won wisdom from years tending wanderers in her valley, where justice meant filling empty bellies before questioning pedigrees. This philosophy took root most vividly in the heart of the castle, where Helga established the kitchens as a throbbing nexus of abundance and unity. Deep beneath the great hall, she carved out vast chambers where cauldrons bubbled eternally under her charms, flames dancing blue without wood or wick. Stone counters gleamed under perpetual cleanliness spells, and pantries yawned open with shelves groaning under conjured fruits that tasted of sun-ripened orchards, breads that steamed with the memory of hearth-baked warmth, and meats that sizzled with flavours pulled from the wildest hunts. Helga's feasts became legend from the start, grand spreads where house elves charmed into joyful service long before such bonds were common, orchestrated symphonies of platters, golden roasted pheasants dripping juices, pies bursting with spiced pumpkin and venison, be treacle tarts that melted into sweet oblivion on the tongue. These weren't mere meals, they were rituals of belonging, drawing students from every corner to long oaken tables where laughter drowned out the distant howls of the forbidden forest. Through food, Helga glued the four houses together, her earth-steady loyalty reminding them that even the fiercest flames needed good earth to burn true. Rowena, her dearest friend from those visionary days, often spoke of Helga as the quiet anchor amid their soaring ambitions, while Godric charged forward and Ravenclaw sketched ethereal blueprints. Helga ensured the castle breathed with life, her justice tempering their zeal. Her golden cup, a simple vessel, enchanted to never run dry of pure, cool water infused with healing draughts, became a symbol of that generosity, passed hand to hand in moments of thirst or trial. Yet beneath her nurturing gaze, tension simmered like a pot left too long on the boil. Whispers of selectivity began to slither through the halls, challenging the very inclusivity Helga championed. As the founders' harmony frayed at the edges, one voice rose in stark opposition, a cunning prince from the misty fens whose ambitions would shatter their fragile pact. Up next in Chapter 5, Salazar Slytherin, the Prince of the Fen, discover how his shadowed heritage and pure-blood fire ignited the greatest rift in Hogwarts history, leaving secrets buried deeper than any charm Helga ever wove. Helga's vision of a school open to every magical child, no matter their roots, bound the founders together in those early days. Yet shadows lingered in the mist-shrouded east, where a different voice whispered warnings of peril ahead. Salazar Slytherin emerged from those eastern marshlands, a figure as sleek and elusive as the eels that slithered through the peat-black waters of the Fen. The Fen stretched like a living labyrinth, vast and unforgiving, where the land bled into sky under perpetual grey veils. Reeds whispered secrets to the wind, and hidden channels twisted through hummocks of sphagnum moss, swallowing the unwary whole. It was here, amid the croaking chorus of frogs and the distant cry of bitterns, that Salazar was born into a lineage veiled in enigma. The parcel-mouth gift, that rare tongue shared with serpents, traced its mysterious origins to these eastern marshlands, legends speaking of ancient pacts forged in the mud. Some say it began with a witch who bargained her voice to a colossal water serpent during a great flood, granting her kin the power to command the scaled hunters of the deep. Others whisper of cursed bloodlines, where Muggle kings drowned sorcerers in these bogs, only for vipers to rise and avenge them. Passing the sibilant speech down through the veins of survivors, Salazar, raised knee-deep in brackish pools, learned early to heed the hiss of adders coiled in the rushes, their eyes gleaming like emeralds in the gloom. He called himself the Prince of the Fen, master of its hidden ways, where he honed his cunning against the treacherous tides. From boyhood, Salazar navigated not just the Fen's perils, but the brutal clashes between wizards and muggles encroaching from the dry lands. He'd seen villages torched, kin dragged to pyres by pitchfork-wielding mobs who feared the unseen forces stirring in the swamps. Those scars ran deep, twisting his ambition into something sharper, more guarded. He delved into the dark arts, not for conquest but survival, weaving spells that cloaked entire homesteads in illusions of barren waste. Resourcefulness became his creed, turning the Fen's own venom, nightshade berries, viper fangs, into potions that could fell a dozen foes. Yet beneath that steel lay a profound loyalty to what he held pure, the untainted magic that had endured the ages, unsullied by those whose blood ran thin with Muggle strain. It was during one such raid, as flames licked the thatch of a neighbouring wizard clan, that Salazar first crossed paths with Godric Gryffindor. The warrior from the Hollow had charged into the fray, sword flashing like lightning over the moors, scattering the persecutors with roars that shook the night. Salazar, lurking in the shadows, unleashed serpents from the undergrowth to strike at the attackers' heels, their fangs a silent symphony to Godric's thunder. In the aftermath, amid the acrid smoke and dying embers, the two clasped forearms, brothers forged in battle's crucible. Godric, with his fire-bright valour, saw in Salazar a mirror of shadowed strength. Salazar admired the unyielding heart that faced peril head-on. They duelled for days under fen-storm skies, Godric's blade clashing against Salazar's wand-born serpents, each push and parry deepening their bond. They shared tales by peat fires, Godric of hollow winds and chivalric oaths, Salazar of marsh whispers and ancient guile. It was a brotherhood destined to break. Though neither glimpsed the fracture lines then, etched by differing dreams of what wizardkind must become, as they journeyed north to join Rowena and Helga at the cliffside site. Salazar's mind churned with visions of the school to come. He envisioned labyrinthine passages snaking through stone, hidden from prying Muggle eyes, chambers warded by basilisk gazes for only the worthy. His hands shaped the castle's underbelly, infusing walls with serpentine cunning that would baffle intruders for centuries. But purity haunted his thoughts, a fixation born not of arrogance but terror. The Muggle burnings replayed in his nightmares. Wizards betrayed by half-blood kin, too weak to conceal their gifts, drawing hunters like moths to flame. Salazar's obsession with purity stood as a misguided form of protection, a bulwark against dilution. Only those of pure wizarding descent, he argued in heated councils by the lock's edge, could safeguard magic's flame. Tainted blood invited catastrophe, he claimed, hissing Parseltongue curses under his breath as adders writhed at his feet. Helga's open arms appalled him. Godric's fairness chafed against his caution. To Salazar, admitting Muggle-born children was to court the pyres anew, inviting spies into their sanctuary. The rift simmered slowly like fen mist rising at dawn. Salazar crafted artifacts of shadowed legacy, a locket etched with serpentine runes, pulsing with his essence, meant to endure for his true heir. He delved deeper into basilisk lore, whispering to eggs smuggled from Egyptian tombs, coaxing life from stone for a monster that would purge any unworthy. Godric sensed the growing chill, their duels turning tense, laughter fading into silences heavy with unspoken fears. Yet in those founding years, unity held, fragile as reed stems in flood. Salazar's cunning complemented Godric's bravery, his hidden ways shielding their growing haven from the world's wrath. Whispers of raised walls and enchanted battlements echo next, in Chapter 6, raising the castle walls, where the Founder's magic clashes with stone and sky to birth a fortress eternal, but at what hidden cost? Salazar Slytherin's fierce belief in blood purity might have simmered beneath the surface, but for now it bound the four founders in a shared urgency to erect a fortress that no Muggle eye could pierce. In the shadow of that craggy Scottish cliff, overlooking the deep waters of the Great Lake, they began the impossible task of conjuring a castle from thin air, stone by stone, spell by spell, all in utter secrecy. Picture the raw power humming through the air as Godric Gryffindor gripped his wand like a duelist's swords, channeling fire into the earth to melt rock into molten streams that cooled into towering battlements. Helga Hufflepuff worked tirelessly beside him, her charms weaving loyalty into every mortar seam, ensuring the walls would hold fast against siege or storm, her earthy magic drawing nutrients from the soil to birth unyielding foundations that rooted deep into the Highlands' bedrock. Rowena Ravenclaw orchestrated the grand design, her intellect sketching blueprints in the stars, bending air currents to lift colossal slabs skyward, positioning them with the precision of a raven's flight. And Salazar Slytherin, ever the cunning one, infused the structure with serpentine wards, hidden passages twisting like veins through the stone, illusions cloaking the entire edifice in perpetual mist, rendering it invisible to any non-magical gaze that dared approach. They laboured through moonless nights and fog-shrouded dawns, their wands tracing runes that glowed faintly before fading into permanence. No hammer rang out, no chisel scarred the silence. Instead, transfiguration spells reshaped quarried granite from distant quarries, levitation charms hoisted arches that spanned vast chambers, and Protego Maxima layered an impenetrable veil over the site. Muggle shepherds on the moors below might have glimpsed fleeting shadows or heard whispers on the wind, but the founders' Fidelius charm, prototyped in those early days, sealed their work from prying eyes, with each of them as secret keeper in turn. It was a symphony of magic, four wills converging to birth a bastion that would stand for centuries, hidden from the torches of witch hunters and the arrows of the fearful. At the heart of this emerging fortress rose the Great Hall, a cavernous space destined to echo with generations of laughter and incantations. The founders poured their essences into its enchantment, Godric igniting eternal hearths that roared without fuel, Helga conjuring tables that groaned under endless feasts of charmed viands, roasts that carved themselves, puddings that refilled with a wink. Rowena etched constellations into the very rafters, her air magic binding spells so profound that the ceiling became a living mirror to the heavens above. Gaze upward during a banquet, and you'd see not timber beams, but the velvet Scottish sky unspooling in real time. The wheeling stars of Orion, the pale moon waxing through its phases, even the drifting clouds of a summer storm, all captured flawlessly, as if the roof had dissolved into infinity. It was Rowena's masterstroke, a reminder that knowledge soared boundless, pulling students' eyes heavenward to dream amid the feast. Yet amid this wonder, the founders etched a solemn warning into the school's crest, a motto that spoke volumes to the perils beyond their walls. Draco Dormiens nunquam titilandus, never tickle a sleeping dragon. It was no mere flourish, but a defiant message to the Muggle world, etched in Latin to veil its power from common tongues. The dragon, fierce guardian of ancient lore, symbolized the wild magic they sought to nurture within these stones. A beast best left undisturbed, lest it awaken in fury upon those who persecuted its kin. Slytherin championed its inclusion, his fen-born cunning seeing it as a subtle threat, while Gryffindor relished its bold roar, Helga its steadfast vigilance, and Rowena its layered wisdom. Together, it crowned their creation, a badge of defiance fluttering from future banners. As the walls climbed higher, sealing in chambers that would one day house secrets untold, the founders turned their minds to how these young charges, gathered from hiding across the land, would be divided among their visions. That pivotal enchantment, whispered into an unassuming hat, would sing its first song soon enough, forever changing the halls they had raised. Stay with me for Chapter 7, the Sorting Hat's first song, where you'll hear the verses that birthed the houses and ignited rivalries that burn to this day. With the Great Hall now complete, its enchanted ceilings swirling with the first hints of a starry Scottish night, the four founders gathered at the high table, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of floating candles. The castle stood ready, a fortress of stone and spellwork, but one question loomed larger than any archway or tower. What would become of this school when they were gone? They had poured their lives into these walls, seeking out hidden sparks of magic in children across the land, bringing them here to learn in safety. Yet mortality whispered in the wind off the lake, a reminder that even the greatest witches and wizards could not outrun time. The dilemma of legacy gripped them. How to ensure the school continued after the founders died, thriving without their guiding hands, their wisdom fading like echoes in the forbidden forest. Without a way to pass on their vision, Hogwarts risked crumbling into forgotten ruins, its halls silent once more. Godric Gryffindor, ever the bold one, broke the thoughtful hush first. He reached up and removed his hat, that weathered, wide-brimmed traveller's cap he'd worn through countless duels and journeys from Godric's Hollow. It was no ordinary garment. Patched and frayed from years of battle, it had absorbed the essence of his daring spirit. But now he placed it on the table before them, his voice steady as he proposed the impossible. Enchant it with their four collective minds, weaving their intellects into its very fibres to create an eternal sorter of souls. Helga nodded, her warm eyes reflecting the candlelight, knowing her own knowledge of charms would bind the magic tight. Rowena leaned forward, her sharp mind already tracing the intricate spells needed to infuse it with wit and creativity. Salazar, his gaze distant as the fens he hailed from, added his cunning, ensuring the hat could pierce deceptions and ambitions alike. Together, they chanted ancient incantations, their wands tracing luminous threads that dove into the hat's cloth. Memories flooded in, Godric's clashes with Muggle persecutors, Helga's feast nourishing the weary, Rowena's dreams of the warty hog, Salazar's serpentine whispers. The hat twitched, then stilled, alive now with fragments of all four, a living archive of their unity. In those early days, before any shadows of discord crept in, the hat defined the original criteria for the four houses with crystal clarity. Gryffindor's house welcomed the brave at heart, those whose courage burned like wildfire, ready to face dragons or darkness without flinching. Hufflepuffs took the loyal and hard-working, souls as steadfast as the earth, valuing justice and effort over raw power. Ravenclaws gathered the wise and creative, minds soaring on wings of air, hungry for knowledge's endless horizons. Slytherins claimed the ambitious and resourceful, deep as still waters, cunning enough to navigate any storm. The enchantment complete, the hat stirred on the table, its brim curling as if grinning, and then for the very first time, it burst into song, its voice a gravelly melody that filled the empty great hall, words tumbling out in a rhythm, both ancient and alive. "Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see," it began, startling them all with its cheeky wisdom. It sang of the founder's grand design, of houses built to nurture every shade of magic, sorting the young ones not by blood or birth, but by the core virtues that would shape them into wizards and witches worthy of the wizarding world. That first song echoed off the stone walls, a promise etched in rhyme. The hat would call each child to their true house, ensuring the school spirit endured through generations. No longer would the founders need to judge alone. The hat, brimming with their combined genius, would whisper secrets only it could know, placing ruby, sapphire, emerald, or topaz upon heads for years beyond their lifetimes. As the notes faded into the enchanted ceiling's starry vault, a profound peace settled over the hall. The legacy was secured, the sorting ritual born. But this harmony, this golden era of cooperation among the four, held secrets of triumphs and daily wonders yet to unfold. Wonders that would define Hogwarts at its peak before the first cracks appeared. Stay with me for Chapter 8. The Golden Age of Cooperation, where you'll discover just how brightly their united vision burned, with the sorting hat now humming softly in the Great Hall, infused with the essence of all four founders. The castle's corridors seemed to breathe a little deeper, as if anticipating the voices that would soon echo through them. Those first placements weren't just a ritual, they marked the dawn of something extraordinary. A golden age where Godric, Helga, Rowena, and Salazar stood shoulder to shoulder, their differences not yet fractures but strengths woven together. In the opening years of the 10th century, this became known as the Harmony Phase, a fleeting era when Hogwarts truly felt like a sanctuary forged from unity. The founders ventured out into the wilds of Britain, seeking the first generation of students. Children plucked from hidden hamlets and persecuted families, their magic flickering like untamed sparks in the shadow of Muggle torches. Picture those early arrivals, wide-eyed boys and girls, some barely past their 7th summer, stumbling through the castle's oak doors with cloaks muddied from long journeys. There was young Elowen from the Cornish cliffs, whose accidental bursts of flame had set her village ablaze, or Tomas from the Welsh hills, who could coax stones to dance with a whisper. Dozens at first, then scores, gathered not by bloodline or prowess, but by the simple miracle of their wands choosing them. The founders welcomed them all, no questions asked, beyond the hat's gentle verdict, filling the dormitories with laughter that chased away the chill of the stones. What made this phase shimmer was the delicate balance the four brought to the school's magic, each embodying one of the ancient elements that steadied the castle's power like pillars holding up the sky. Godric Gryffindor's fire burned at the heart, fierce, illuminating jewels in the courtyard where flames leaped from his wand to teach precision amid chaos, warming the hearths that never dimmed. Helga Hufflepuff's earth grounded it all, her charms rooting deep into the soil, ensuring bountiful harvests from the greenhouses and feasts appeared with a wave, nourishing bodies and spirits alike. Rowena Ravenclaw's air lifted the lessons skyward, her spells weaving winds through the towers that carried thoughts like whispers, unlocking minds with breezes scented of forgotten libraries. And Salazar Slytherin's water flowed beneath, cunning currents through hidden pipes and the Great Lake, mastering illusions in the dungeons that shifted like mist over fens, binding secrets with serpentine grace. Together these forces, fire, earth, air, water, interlocked in perfect equilibrium, the castle's enchantments humming without strain, the moving staircases gliding smoothly, the lake's depths calm yet alive with promise. No single element overwhelmed. They danced in cycles, fueling spells that felt eternal, as if the school itself had found its pulse. Rare accounts survive of those days, whispered in faded parchments tucked away in the restricted section, describing moments when all four founders gathered in a single classroom. A vast chamber high in the west tower, its windows framing storm-lashed moors. Imagine the air thick with the scent of smouldering oak and fresh ink, the blackboard alive with Rowena's glowing runes. Godric would stride in first, his ruby cloak billowing, demonstrating a Patronus charm that roared like a lion across the room, sparks flying as students ducked and cheered. Helga followed, her voice warm as fresh bread, transfiguring a cluster of pebbles into golden loaves, teaching them to infuse loyalty into every incantation, her hand steady as the valley earth. Rowena perched on a conjured stool, unravelling a riddle that twisted the air into fractal patterns, her eyes alight as young minds grasped the elegance of wit over brute force. Then Salazar, gliding from the shadows, his voice a silken murmur, summoning serpents from ink pots that slithered harmlessly to illustrate cunning yields, his water wards rippling to shield the class from stray sparks. They bantered across the desks, Godric's bold laugh clashing with Salazar's sly retort, Helga mediating with a shared cup of mead, Rowena sketching diagrams that unified their arts. No rivalries marred those hours. Instead, their magics braided, a first year's fumbling Leviosa, lifting not just a feather, but the whole room in harmonious glow. One such tale, etched by a student named Elric, speaks of a joint lesson on defensive wards. Fire-forged barriers tempered by water's flow, earthed by Helga's roots, and crowned by airy veils, invincible, unbreakable, a testament to what they built when envy hadn't yet crept in. Those classrooms pulsed with potential. The first generations absorbing not just spells, but a vision of wizardkind united against the world's cruelties. Feasts in the Great Hall stretched late into misty nights, the enchanted ceiling mirroring starlit skies as the founders recounted their own perils, Muggle pitchforks at Godric's heels, Salazar's fens haunted by zealots, Helga's valleys scarred by witch hunts, Rowena's glens echoing with accusations. Stories flowed like the castle's hidden rivers, binding students to the houses while blurring the lines between them. Gryffindors sparred with Slytherins under watchful eyes, Ravenclaws puzzled over Hufflepuff recipes that charmed ingredients to sing. The elements' balance extended to daily life. Fires that cooked without scorching, earth that healed scraped knees, air that freshened stuffy towers, water that purified doubts. Even the forbidden forest seemed tamed then, its edges patrolled by joint charms, whispering secrets only to those deemed ready. Yet beneath this golden veneer, subtle currents stirred. Lances held too long, debate sharpening over tankards. Slytherin's waters ran deeper, cooler, hinting at tides yet to turn. The Harmony phase couldn't last forever. The first students graduated into a world, still teeming with peril, carrying the Founders' light, but also their unspoken tensions. Still, those years etched Hogwarts' soul, a blueprint of cooperation that the stones remember even now. As whispers of discord begin to surface in the chronicles, one artifact emerges from Rowena's legacy that would redefine wisdom itself. The diadem and the quest for wisdom, where a crown of silver promises boundless knowledge, but at what hidden cost? As the first students filled the halls during that golden harmony phase, with fire, earth, air and water weaving their balanced magic through every spell and stone, Rowena Ravenclaw turned her gaze inward, chasing the sharpest edge of the mind itself. She had always been the one from the glen, high in the Scottish Highlands, where mist clung to ancient peaks like forgotten thoughts. It was her dream of the warty hog that had guided them to this cliffside sanctuary by the lake, her vision that named the school Hogwarts. But now, in the quiet hours after lessons, while Godric sparred with young bravos and Helga stirred feasts from simple charms, Rowena laboured alone in a tower room, a quill scratching across parchment under the flicker of self-lit candles. Rowena believed true power lay not in wands or beasts, but in the boundless potential of the human intellect. Wizards and witches, she argued in those early debates around the Founders' table, squandered their gifts on rote spells when they could unlock secrets the stars themselves guarded. Her eyes, sharp as a raven's, would narrow as she spoke of ancient runes half forgotten, of charms that bent time's flow, of potions that whispered prophecies. Yet she saw the limits in every student, even the brightest. Hesitations, blind spots, the fog of mortal doubt. What if, she wondered aloud, one stormy evening, as thunder rolled over the forbidden forest, we could amplify the mind beyond its fragile shell? Driven by that question, Rowena poured years into her masterpiece. She scoured forgotten libraries in hidden glens, bartered with ethereal sprites for lost lore, and meditated atop the highest turret until visions came unbidden. From silver thread spun by moonlit spiders and crystal shards quarried from dragon-veined mountains, she wove the diadem of Ravenclaw, a delicate band, lighter than a sigh, etched with runes that glowed faintly blue, like veins of intellect pulsing beneath skin. Rowena's creation of the diadem was a tool to enhance human intelligence, designed so that any who wore it would gain extraordinary wit, clarity sharper than a phoenix's cry, insights cascading like 1,000 unlocked doors. She tested it first on herself. Late one night when the castle slept, slipping it onto her brow, she felt the rush, a torrent of knowledge, flooding her veins. Parchments unrolled in her mind, revealing flaws in every enchantment the Founders had laid. She redesigned the moving staircases in a single fevered hour, making them anticipate the students' steps. The Great Hall's ceiling, once a mere mirror of the sky, now whispered astronomical alignments to those who looked up. Students marveled as lessons transformed. A simple transfiguration became a symphony of possibilities. Arithmancy unfolded like blooming nightshade. Words spread through the harmony phase. Wear the diadem, and wisdom was yours, boundless and immediate. But wisdom, Rowena soon learned, carried a shadow longer than the glen at dusk. The hidden cost of seeking absolute wit revealed itself gradually, a creeping chill in her tower. At first, the diadem's gifts dazzled. She solved riddles that had stumped Merlin's heirs, foresaw magical fluxes before they stirred the lake. Yet the more she wore it, the heavier it grew, not in weight but in burden. Knowledge piled upon knowledge, an avalanche without end, every secret birthing 10 more, every truth laced with doubt. Isolation followed. Conversations with Godric turned curt. His brave heart couldn't match her dissecting gaze. Helga's warm tales felt trivial, Salazar's cunning schemes predictable puzzles. Rowena Ravenclaw's brilliance became her cage, the diadem amplifying, not just intellect, but an unquenchable hunger that left her hollow, staring into candle flames that now seemed to mock her with their simplicity. Nights blurred into days as she refined it, tweaking runes to temper the flood, but the cost lingered. Her laughter faded, replaced by a perpetual furrow between her brows. She paced the battlements, debating philosophies with the wind, while below, students thrived on the school's balance magic. The diadem, meant to elevate all, she kept close, lending it rarely, fearing its toll on young minds. Whispers grew among the founders. Rowena changes, they said, her air element turning rarefied, untouchable, yet she pressed on, convinced perfection lay just beyond the next insight. This quest strained more than her solitude. It seeped into her home, touching the one soul she held dearest. Rowena had a daughter, Helena, born in the glen's quiet cradle before Hogwarts rose. Tall and ethereal, with her mother's raven hair, but a wilder spirit, Helena watched from the shadows as Rowena donned the diadem night after night. Early signs of Rowena's perfectionism affected her relationship with her daughter in subtle fractures. Lessons became interrogations. Why this incantation faltered, why Helena's creativity veered from precision. Wit is not whimsy, Rowena would say, her voice edged like a blade, adjusting the diadem as if it judged them both. Helena, bright but restless, chafed under the weight. Picnics by the lake turned to lectures on celestial mechanics. Games in the glen to dissections of charm theory. Rowena saw potential untapped, a mind worthy of the diadem's fire. But Helena felt only the chill of expectation, her mother's brilliance a mirror reflecting her own perceived flaws. Tensions simmered through the harmony phase. Helena would slip away to the forbidden forest's edges, seeking spells of freedom Rowena deemed frivolous. Arguments echoed in the tower, Rowena demanding study, Helena craving flight. The diadem, perched on its velvet stand, seemed to watch, its runes pulsing as if alive. Rowena confided in no one, not even Helga, her closest friend. Perfectionism blinded her to the rift widening beneath her feet. She crafted riddles for the castle doors, infused logic into the Sorting Hat's songs, all while her daughter drifted further, a ghost in the glen-born home they'd built. Yet in those moments of strain, Rowena glimpsed the diadem's true peril, not just overload, but the erosion of simple joys. Wit without warmth curdled into arrogance. Brilliance without balance became a solitary throne. She etched a warning into its band, faint for the wise to find. Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure, but even she, its maker, wrestled the temptation. As the first students matured and the elements held their equilibrium, Rowena's tower became a beacon and a warning. Air's gift, sharp and soaring, yet prone to thinning into void. The harmony endured, but seeds of discord stirred in intellect's relentless pursuit. Rowena's path with the diadem would echo through centuries, twisted later by darker hands into a horcrux of forgotten lore. For now, though, as her perfectionism cast long shadows over family ties, another founder stepped forward with a vessel of quieter virtues. In our next chapter, Chapter 10, The Cup of Kindness, discover the heartfelt creation that bound hearts where minds alone faltered. What hidden enchantments did Helga brew, and how did it mend the Founder's fragile circle? While Rowena Ravenclaw poured her brilliance into the diadem, chasing wisdom that often left her isolated at glittering heights, Helga Hufflepuff turned her gifts toward the warm earth below, where true strength grew from shared sustenance and gentle hands. From the broad valleys of Wales, lands lush with rolling green hills and hidden streams, Helga emerged as the heart of the Founders, her magic rooted in the soil like the ancient oaks that dotted her homeland. She saw no hierarchy in talent or blood. To her, every witch or wizard child deserved a place at the table, their potential nurtured through patience and plenty. Helga's days in those early years at Hogwarts were filled with the rhythmic hum of creation in the castle's vast kitchens, deep beneath the great hall where stone walls gleamed with perpetual warmth from charmed hearths. She wielded her wand not for grand duels or arcane riddles, but for the subtle art of infusion, brewing spells into batter and broth, turning simple ingredients into vessels of comfort and power. Imagine the scent of fresh-baked bread rising through the castle corridors, loaves that could mend a weary spirit with a single bite, or stews simmered over fires that whispered healing incantations, drawing out fevers and mending bones fractured in youthful mishaps during flying lessons. Her legendary recipes became the school's unspoken backbone, passed in whispers among the first house elves she befriended and trained, ensuring feasts that not only filled bellies but fortified the very magic within each student. Picture the harmony phase in full bloom. Long tables groaning under golden platters of roast meats that tasted of home no matter where a child hailed from. Puddings that sparked joy in the dullest heart, and pies whose flaky crusts hid charms for loyalty and endurance. Helga moved among the cauldrons like a conductor, her laughter echoing softly as she taught apprentices, be they quick-witted Ravenclaws or bold Gryffindors, how a pinch of dragon scale could amplify flavour while binding friendships, or how moonlight-kissed herbs stirred into porridge could soothe nightmares born of Muggle persecutions outside the castle walls. Food preparation under her guidance wasn't mere cookery, it was alchemy of the everyday, transforming scarcity into abundance, division into unity. In an age when the world hunted their kind, her tables offered refuge, a daily ritual that knit the school together, stronger than any enchantment. Yet for all her quiet mastery, Helga Hufflepuff's legacy is often unfairly overshadowed by the warrior houses of Gryffindor and Slytherin, those fiery duelists and shadowy schemers, whose tales of bravery and cunning fill the history tomes. Gryffindor's sword gleams in legend, Slytherin's serpent strikes fear. Even Rowena's diadem whispers of intellectual conquests, flashy virtues that echo through Quidditch pitches and dueling clubs. Helga's earthbound gifts, they sustain without fanfare, her hard work and loyalty dismissed as the unglamorous toil of the steadfast, the ones who clear the fields while heroes claim the harvest. Wizards prize the clash of wands over the clink of spoons, forgetting that without her nurturing magic, the castle's grand halls would stand empty, its students' hollow shells adrift in hunger. It was from this deep well of care that Helga crafted her most enduring artifact, the Golden Cup, a masterpiece of enchanted gold hammered in her valley forge under a full moon's glow. Small enough to cradle in two hands, its surface swirled with runes of restoration, glowing faintly like captured sunlight. She created the Golden Cup not as a trophy of conquest, but as a vessel for healing, imbued with charms to purify and amplify any elixir poured within, turning ordinary potions into miracles that knit flesh, eased pain, and even whispered balm to fractured souls. Students who fell ill from experimental spells, or bore scars from the outer world's cruelty, would drink from it in the hospital wing. The cup's magic drawing out ailments like roots pulling water from stone, leaving them renewed, their loyalty to Hogwarts deepened by her touch. Helga often filled it herself during those golden years, ladling draughts brewed from her own recipes. Elixir of earthy resilience, blended with valley honey and phoenix tears traded from far-off allies, or tonics of steadfast calm that steadied trembling hands before the Sorting Hat's song. The cup became a symbol of her house's creed. To heal is to build, to nourish is to endure. Passed among the founders in moments of vulnerability. A cut from Godric's sword practice, Rowena's migraines from overthinking, even Slytherin's secretive wounds from fen beasts. It held their fragile unity, a quiet promise amid rising tensions. As whispers of discord began to stir, Helga's cup stood as a beacon of what the school could be, a place where wounds, physical or otherwise, found remedy in kindness. Her recipes echoed in every meal, her healing vessel a testament to magic's gentlest power, yet history's gaze drifted to bolder shadows. In the broad valleys she loved, wildflowers still bloom unchecked, much like her influence, perennial, overlooked, vital. But as the harmony phase waned and old scars resurfaced, darker ambitions from the fens cast long reflections on even the warmest hearths. Next, in Chapter 11, The Locket and the Shadow of the Fen, we'll uncover the cold gleam of Salazar Slytherin's heirloom and the twisted purity that threatened to poison the well forever. What hidden venom did he seal within it, waiting for his true heir? Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. As the feasts in the Great Hall grew ever more bountiful under Helga's touch, with her golden cup passed among students of every stripe to mend wounds both seen and unseen, a chill began to seep into the castle's stones from the misty fens, far to the south. Salazar Slytherin, born amid those treacherous wetlands where serpents coiled in the reeds and ancient magics whispered through the fog, carried scars no healing cup could soothe. He had seen Muggle torches light the night, chasing his kin into the muck, their blood mingling with the peat. Pure wizarding blood, he believed, was the only true safeguard against such savagery. A lineage untainted, resilient as the eels that slithered through his childhood streams. In the dim glow of his private chambers, deep within the dungeons where the lake's pressure hummed against the walls, Salazar laboured over his greatest personal creation. He poured molten gold into a heavy locket, its chain thick and unyielding, the metal etched with coiling serpents that seemed to writhe when moonlight struck them. This was no mere trinket. He enchanted it with spells drawn from forgotten grimoires, infusing it with an aura that amplified the wearer's sense of heritage, whispering affirmations of superiority to those of pure blood descent. Slytherin wore it first himself, feeling its weight settle like a vow against his chest, a symbol of pride in the ancient lines that had survived Muggle wrath. He gifted replicas to select students from old families, urging them to clasp it close, letting its magic stoke a quiet fire of exclusivity amid the school's growing diversity. But Salazar's vision extended beyond symbols into the very heart of their teachings. He argued fiercely in the Founders' Council for the introduction of the dark arts into the Hogwarts curriculum, not as forbidden shadows, but as essential weapons in a perilous world. Picture the chamber where they met, high in a forgotten turret, the air thick with the scent of burning sage and aged vellum. Slytherin unrolled parchments yellowed by time, demonstrating curses that could shatter stone or bind a foe's soul, insisting these were the tools their pupils needed to defend against the persecutions that still echoed from the valleys. The dark arts, he claimed, honed cunning and ambition, turning resourcefulness into raw power, skills born of his fen upbringing, where survival demanded outwitting both beast and bigot. This push ignited the first recorded arguments between Salazar and the other three founders, fractures that spider-webbed through their once unbreakable alliance. Godric Gryffindor slammed his fist on the oaken table, his voice booming like thunder over the Highlands, decrying the dark arts as a poison that would corrupt the young hearts they sought to nurture. Helga, ever the mediator, wrung her hands, her valley warmth clashing against his watery chill, pleading that such teachings would sow fear where loyalty should bloom. Rowena, sharp as her glen winds, countered with logic colder than dungeon stone, warning that wisdom untempered by morality twisted into madness. A diadem's glow dimming in the tension, Slytherin stood unyielding, his parcel-tongued hiss underscoring each retort, eyes gleaming like the locket's gold as he accused them of naivety, of inviting muggle-born weakness into their sanctuary. These clashes echoed through the corridors, students whispering of raised voices, late into the night, the castle's moving staircases seeming to hesitate as if sensing the discord. Salazar retreated often to the fens in those days, vanishing into the shadows for weeks, returning with mud-caked robes and grimoires clutched tight, his locket heavier with each unresolved debate. The air in the great hall grew taut during meals, Gryffindor's ruby banners flickering as if in challenge to Slytherin's emerald ones. Yet harmony lingered, fragile as morning mist, held by memories of raised walls and shared enchantments. Deeper still, Slytherin's advocacy for the dark arts stemmed from visions of a wizarding world, armoured against extinction. He crafted lesson plans in secret, sketching runes that summoned shadows to shield the unwary, potions that revealed hidden enemies in the fog. Trials in empty classrooms drew curious pupils, their faces alight with forbidden thrill as a conjured wisp drained the colour from a practice dummy. But the Founder's rift widened with every demonstration, Godric's sword rattling in its scabbard, Helga's cup set aside untouched, Rowena's quill scratching furious rebuttals. Slytherin's pure-blood pride, embodied in that unyielding locket, began to cast long shadows over the curriculum he so desperately sought to reshape. Whispers from the fen grew insistent in his dreams, Serpentine Council urging preservation at any cost. The arguments piled like storm clouds, each one etching lines deeper into the Founder's faces. The Sorting Hat's brim drooping as if heavy with unspoken prophecies. What began as debates over spells and symbols threatened to unravel the elemental balance they had so carefully woven. Fire, earth, air, and water straining against one another, and as these tensions coiled tighter, threatening to burst the fragile peace. Join us next for Chapter 12. The Great Schism begins, where loyalties shatter and secrets slither forth from the depths. As the heavy gold locket came to symbolise Salazar Slytherin's unyielding pure-blood pride, and the subtle threads of dark arts wove into the Hogwarts curriculum under his watchful eye, shadows began to creep across the once unbreakable bonds of the Founders. Whispers from the world beyond the castle walls grew louder, tales of Muggle fury, turning against those who bore the spark of magic. You can almost feel the chill wind sweeping through the Scottish Highlands that fateful season, carrying the acrid scent of smoke from distant villages where pyres blazed. Muggles, gripped by fear and superstition, had long hunted witches and wizards, their torches lighting the night as accusations flew like curses. Families torn apart, children orphaned in the flames, entire wizarding lineages driven into hiding. These weren't distant rumours anymore. They battered at Hogwarts' enchanted barriers, seeping into the Great Hall during feasts, where students huddled closer, their eyes wide with inherited dread. Salazar, scarred deepest by those torments from his Fenland origins, saw patterns in the peril that the others dismissed. He paced the stone corridors at midnight, his locket glinting under torchlight, convinced that Muggle blood diluted the wizarding world's strength, inviting betrayal from within. One stormy evening, as thunder rattled the moving staircases, he gathered the Founders in the chamber where the Sorting Hat rested, its brim still humming faintly with their shared essence. His voice cut through the gale outside like a serpent's hiss. The school must adopt a pure-blood-only policy, admitting no Muggle-born students, no heirs to those who persecuted them. Only those of ancient magical lineage could be trusted to wield power without weakness, he argued, his ambition sharpening into a blade. The room fell silent, the fire in the hearth flickering as if recoiling. Helga's face softened with sorrow, her hands clasped around the golden cup that had healed so many divides. Rowena's eyes narrowed behind her spectacles, calculating the fracture such a decree would carve into their dream. But it was Godric Gryffindor who erupted first, his fiery temper igniting like the element he embodied. From the wilds of Godric's Hollow, he had always championed the brave heart over the pure vein, admitting any magical child before their 11th birthday, no matter their birth. How dare Salazar tarnish the school's soul with blood prejudice, he roared, slamming his fist on the oaken table. Muggle-borns brought fresh courage, untainted valor. To bar them was to quench the very flames that made wizards unstoppable. Words escalated into shouts that echoed off the castle's ancient walls, the air thick with the ozone tang of impending spells. Salazar's cunning twisted into defiance, his parcel-mouth whispers slithering through the tension. Godric stood unyielding, his sword, yet to be fully legendary, gleaming at his side, a goblin-forged promise of justice. The breaking point came swiftly, as friends who had built a sanctuary together drew wands in the heart of their haven. Sparks flew in the first duel between them, crimson jets of light clashing mid-air, shattering a crystal goblet and scorching tapestries woven by Helga's own charms. Salazar's water-like serpentine spells coiled and struck. Godric's firebolt disarms blazed back, forcing retreats but no surrender. In that blistering exchange, the harmony phase shattered beyond repair, the delicate balance of fire, earth, air and water fracturing like the castle's lake ice under a dragon's tread. Laughter that once filled the halls during the golden age of cooperation turned to uneasy silences. Students sensed the rift, houses stirring with unspoken loyalties, Gryffindor's banners fluttering defiantly, Slytherin's emerald silks darkening. Helga tried to mend with feasts of reconciliation, her recipes laced with calming elixirs, while Rowena proposed diadem-enhanced debates to seek wisdom in the divide. But the wound festered. Salazar retreated to his hidden passages, his resourcefulness turning inward, the locket a cold weight against his chest. Godric patrolled the grounds fiercer than ever, seeking out Muggle-born talents in peril, escorting them through shadowed glens to safety. The escalating Muggle-wizard tensions outside only fueled the fire, reports of basilisk-like horrors in Muggle tales mirroring Salazar's growing isolation. Whispers spread among the first generation of students. Would the school survive its creators' clash? Yet beneath the castle's foundations, as alliances crumbled, one founder began plotting in earnest. Join me next for Chapter 13, The Secret Construction, where you'll uncover the hidden labours that would echo through centuries, threatening to unravel everything they built. As the echoes of that fateful duel between Godric and Salazar faded into the castle's ancient stones, the rift that had cracked their brotherhood now splintered wide open. Salazar Slytherin, once the steady current of water tempering the founder's fiery ambitions, began to drown in his own suspicions. Every Muggle-born student who crossed the thresholds of Hogwarts became in his eyes a living peril, a Trojan horse carrying the flames of persecution back into their sanctuary. He paced the shadowed fens of his homeland. More often now, the mist-cloaked marshes whispering secrets that fed his growing dread. Whispers of Muggle mobs gathering in distant villages, tales of witches burned at stakes, and rumours of spies among the young witches and wizards they sheltered. Salazar saw it all as a prelude to betrayal. Those children of Muggles, he convinced himself, harboured loyalties that could unravel everything the founders had built. His ambition, once a force for cunning innovation, twisted into a fortress of isolation. He trusted no one, not even his closest allies among the pure-blood elite. In the dead of night, when the castle slept under the enchantment of moving staircases and watchful portraits, Salazar turned his resourcefulness to a desperate act of defiance. He began the clandestine construction of the Chamber of Secrets, a vast underworld lair carved deep beneath the school's foundations. No grand announcements, No shared blueprints with his fellow founders. This was his alone. A labyrinth of serpentine tunnels and echoing vaults, hewn from the living rock using spells of transfiguration and earth-shaping charms drawn from the forbidden tomes, he kept hidden in his fen-side retreat. Picture the labour of it. Though you drift towards sleep, torchlight flickering on damp, glistening walls, as Salazar murmured incantations. His voice, a low hiss, blending with the groan of stone yielding to his will. He worked in secrecy, vanishing from feasts and council meetings, his absences chalked up to scouting for pure-blood talent. Galleons bought silence from discreet goblin artisans, their hammers muffled by silencing charms. Months stretched into years, the chamber growing like a hidden root system, vast enough to house horrors yet invisible to the castle's everyday magic. Salazar layered it with wards, illusions of solid floor, false walls that parted only to his touch, and curses that would seal it forever against unworthy eyes. But the true genius lay in concealing its entrance, right in plain sight, amid the bustle of student life. He chose a lowly girl's lavatory on the second floor, a place of giggles and splashing water, unremarkable to all but him. Sinks and pipes twisted into a coiled serpent's form, etched with ancient runes visible only under specific moonlight. To open it demanded the tongue of the serpent. Parcel tongue, that rare gift Salazar wielded like a blade. A simple phrase, spoken in the sibilant language of snakes, would trigger the cascade. Force its hissing in unison, stone grinding as the sink slid away to reveal a yawning pipe chute plunging into darkness. Open, he would command in parcel tongue, and the earth obeyed, swallowing him whole while above. Girls washed their hands, oblivious to the abyss inches away. It mocked the very openness Godric championed, a pure-blood safeguard disguised as plumbing. Deeper still, in the chamber's heart, a colossal hall ringed by serpentine statues, their eyes glinting with latent malice. Salazar prepared his ultimate legacy. He sought out a basilisk egg from the darkest corners of the world, procured through shadowy dealings with ancient serpent cults in far-off lands. This was no mere pet. It was a weapon forged for a future heir, one who would inherit his vision and his voice. Under the glow of luminescent fungi clinging to cavern ceilings, he incubated it in a nest of enchanted soils, soaked in potions of growth and venom. The air grew thick with the scent of sulphur and shed scales as the egg trembled, cracks spiderwebbing its shell. One storm-lashed night, as thunder rattled the castle above, the basilisk hatched. A slithering behemoth unfurled, its scales black as midnight oil, eyes yellow slits promising death to any who met their gaze. Salazar, kneeling before it, spoke in parcel tongue, binding the creature's loyalty to him and his bloodline alone. "You are the purger," he hissed, guardian against the unworthy. Massive even as a hatchling, it grew rapidly on a diet of charmed rats and alchemical brews, coiling through the tunnels like a living shadow. This monster embodied his paranoia made manifest, a silent sentinel, controllable only by parcel mouths, destined to unleash terror on Muggle-borns should his heir ever call it forth. Salazar envisioned it as salvation, a final reckoning hidden until the bloodlines demanded it. Yet even as the chamber neared completion, Salazar's isolation deepened. Whispers among the other founders grew louder. Where did he vanish to? What shadows did he chase? The basilisk's distant rumbles echoed his turmoil, a promise of violence that could shatter their fragile peace forever. But his boldest move, the one that would force a final reckoning, still lay ahead. Join me next for Chapter 14, The Departure of Salazar Slytherin, where you'll uncover the explosive confrontation that tore the founders apart for good, and how one man's exit sealed a curse on Hogwarts that lingers to this day. With the Chamber of Secrets now complete, its entrance concealed behind a serpentine hiss that only a parcel mouth like Salazar could summon, the air in Hogwarts grew thicker with unspoken dread. Salazar Slytherin moved through the castle's shadowed corridors like a storm cloud gathering force, his once collaborative spirit twisted by years of festering resentment. He confided in no one, not even his closest allies among the staff he'd helped recruit, about the monstrous basilisk coiled within those depths, waiting for a command that might one day echo from his bloodline. The founders had sensed the shift in him long before, but tolerance frayed into confrontation as more Muggle-born students arrived, their wide-eyed wonder clashing with Salazar's narrowing gaze. Godric Gryffindor, ever the lion at heart, challenged him first in private chambers, their voices rising like clashing swords. Helga Hufflepuff pleaded for unity over feasts that once bound them, her gentle words falling on ears hardened by memory. Rowena Ravenclaw dissected his arguments with razor-sharp logic, revealing the flaws in his pure-blood doctrine. Yet Salazar clung to his scars from Muggle persecutions, convinced only his kin could wield magic without betrayal. Tension simmered through endless council meetings in the headmaster's tower, where candle flames danced on maps of enchanted Britain. Salazar proposed edicts, barriers at the gates, spells to detect diluted bloodlines, measures the others rejected outright. Whispers spread among students and ghosts alike, the castle itself seeming to hold its breath as alliances fractured. Slytherin's own house, filled with ambitious purebloods, rallied to him in secret gatherings by the lake, their loyalty a serpent's coil tightening around the school's fragile harmony. It all erupted one fateful evening in the Great Hall, during a feast meant to celebrate the school's 5th year. The enchanted ceiling mirrored a twilight sky bruised with storm clouds, and the house tables groaned under Helga's bountiful spreads. Roast venison glistening with herb-infused juices, pumpkin pasties steaming in golden crusts, and flagons of butterbeer foaming over. Students chattered obliviously as the 4 founders took their places at the high table. But the air crackled with magic's undercurrent, wands humming faintly in pockets. Godric rose first, his voice booming like thunder across the hall. He accused Salazar of undermining their shared dream, of building divisions where unity should reign. Salazar shot to his feet, his face pale as marsh mist, eyes flashing green like venom. Words turned to spells in an instant, the final, violent confrontation in the Great Hall, unfolding before horrified students. Godric's sword leaped from its scabbard, gleaming silver under floating candles, parrying a jet of dark curse that shattered goblets and splintered benches. Salazar countered with serpentine agility, his wand weaving shadows that lashed like whips, cracking stone flags, and sending platters flying in sprays of gravy and shattered porcelain. Helga threw up protective charms, golden barriers shimmering to shield the children scrambling for cover, while Rowena's spells twisted the air, redirecting blasts toward the rafters where owls screeched in panic. Salazar fought with cunning fury, his parcel tongue hissing commands that summoned spectral serpents from the floor, their fangs dripping ethereal poison. Godric pressed forward, bravery fueling his strikes, the clash echoing off vaulted ceilings like the tolling of doom. Spells ricocheted, fiery bursts singeing tapestries of ancient battles, icy shards frosting the hourglasses, until Salazar, outnumbered and cornered, unleashed a final desperate curse that cracked the dice. Bleeding from a gash across his cheek, robes torn and singed, Salazar lowered his wand. The hall fell silent save for the drip of melting wax and muffled sobs. Godric's chest heaved, sword poised, but his eyes held sorrow, not triumph. Helga and Rowena flanked him, their faces etched with grief. Salazar straightened, his voice a venomous whisper that carried to every corner. He declared Hogwarts poisoned by Muggle taint, unfit for true wizards. With a sweeping gesture toward the doors, he vowed exile, not defeat. His pure-blood teachings, he swore, would one day return to claim the school through an heir worthy of his legacy, one who spoke the serpent's tongue and purged the unworthy. He turned then, striding from the Great Hall, without a backward glance, his footsteps echoing into legend. The massive oak doors slammed shut behind him, sealing his departure amid a gust that extinguished half the candles. Plunging the hall into twilight gloom, Salazar Slytherin vanished into the fens of his birth, leaving behind the chamber's hidden peril and a house divided in his image. In the immediate aftermath, the remaining 3 founders faced a school reeling from violence. Shattered tables were mended with hurried reparos, but wounds ran deeper. Students huddled in dormitories, ghosts wailed through corridors, and portraits muttered of civil war. Godric Gryffindor took charge first, his rallying speeches in the common rooms igniting sparks of courage, reminding all that Hogwarts stood for bravery against division. He organised patrols with senior students, ensuring safety through the night, his sword a constant gleam at his side. Helga Hufflepuff turned to what she knew best, healing through hearth and heart. She brewed potions in the kitchens that mended cuts and soothed nightmares. Her cup of kindness passed from hand to hand, its golden glow infusing calm. Feasts resumed swiftly, laden with comfort foods, treacle tarts oozing sweetness, hearty stews bubbling with restorative herbs, drawing students back to tables where loyalty rebuilt bonds. Rowena Ravenclaw delved into enchantments, reinforcing the castle's wards with intricate runes that hummed along walls, while counselling the faculty on wisdom over vengeance. Together, they refined the Sorting Hat, infusing it further with their collective will to guide future generations toward unity. They mourned their lost friend in quiet vigils by the lake, where mist rose like ghosts of what might have been. Classes resumed within days, curricula adjusted to fill Slytherin's absence. His dark arts lessons dispersed among trusted professors, hidden passages mapped and sealed where paranoia lingered. The school healed slowly, scars fading into house pride. But Slytherin's shadow endured in Slytherin House's green banners and the unexplained chills near certain sinks. Yet whispers persisted of his vow, a serpent's promise slithering through time. As the founders rebuilt, one tragedy loomed in Ravenclaw's own tower, a daughter's betrayal that would haunt her mother's legacy forever. We'll uncover it all in Chapter 15, the tragedy of Helena Ravenclaw. As the echoes of that fateful duel in the Great Hall faded, and Salazar Slytherin's shadow slipped away into exile, his parting vow hanging like a curse over the castle, the remaining founders sought to mend the fractures in their grand vision. Godric rallied the students with tales of bravery. Helga filled the halls with the warmth of shared feasts, but Rowena Ravenclaw withdrew into a silence deeper than the glen from which she came. A brilliant mind, once the architect of staircases that danced and towers that whispered secrets, now turned inward, tormented by a betrayal far more personal than any rift with Slytherin. Rowena had poured her soul into the diadem, that delicate silver crown lost to time in the stories we cherish. Crafted in the quiet hours before the school's first stones were laid, it gleamed with an enchantment born of her deepest longing, to bestow wisdom upon the worthy, to sharpen the intellect like a raven's beak slicing through fog. She wore it rarely, only in moments of profound creation, when ideas flowed like the highland streams. But her daughter, Helena, watched with eyes that burned not with admiration, but with envy. Tall and ethereal, Helena possessed her mother's beauty and a fraction of her genius, yet she craved the full measure. In the shadowed corners of Ravenclaw Tower, amid scrolls of ancient runes and vials of shimmering ink, resentment festered. Helena believed the diadem held the key to eclipsing Rowena, to claiming the intellect that defined her legacy. One frostbitten night, as the castle slept under a blanket of Scottish stars, Helena slipped the diadem from its hidden alcove. Her fingers trembled on the cool metal, etched with the words, "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure." She vanished without a word, leaving only the faint scent of lavender and ink in her chambers. Whispers spread through the house like mist rolling off the lake. Helena had stolen her mother's heartpiece, the symbol of Ravenclaw's air-spun wisdom. The family, once a bastion of intellectual harmony, shattered from within. Servants spoke in hushed tones of arguments that echoed through the glenside manor, of Rowena's pleas falling on deaf ears, of Helena's pride twisting love into rivalry. The theft wasn't mere rebellion. It was the unravelling of blood ties, a daughter's bid for supremacy that left Rowena clutching empty air where her heirloom, and perhaps her hopes, once rested. Word of Helena's flight reached the founders through frantic owls and trembling portraits. She had crossed borders under cover of night, seeking sanctuary in the wild mountains of Albania, a land of ancient magic and forgotten clans where Muggle eyes rarely pierced the veil. There, amid jagged peaks and whispering winds that carried echoes of old spells, Helena hid the diadem in a hollow tree, convinced its power would one day make her untouchable. But isolation bred regret, or so the ghosts later murmured. Back at Hogwarts, Rowena's decline was merciless. The woman who dreamed of hogs and cliffs, who named their sanctuary with a single visionary breath, now wandered the battlements like a spectre in life, her skin pale to parchment, her eyes hollowed by grief. Healers from Hufflepuff's valley brought potions of mandrake and moondew, but nothing mended a broken heart. She barely ate, her once vibrant debates with Godric reduced to faint nods. The school's architect faded, her body a vessel for sorrow, as Helena's flight to Albania drained the light from her world. Into this tragedy strode the Baron, a young noble from a stormy coastal line, his bloodline as fierce as the gales off the North Sea. He had long pursued Helena with a passion that bordered on obsession, showering her with enchanted jewels and vows sworn on his wand. Tall and brooding, with a temper that crackled like lightning, he saw in her the perfect match for his ambition. When news of her theft and escape reached him, he demanded answers from Rowena, who in her anguish revealed the path to Albania. The Baron set off at once, his horses' hooves thundering over perilous trails, his cloak billowing like a shroud. He found Helena in a ruined forest shrine, the diadem's faint glow betraying her refuge. But she spurned him, her voice cold as Albanian snow. She sought wisdom, not chains. Enraged, rejected, he drew his dagger, silver and rune-etched, and plunged it into her chest. Blood stained the moss, her last breath a gasp of betrayal. In horror at his deed, he turned the blade on himself, collapsing beside her in a pool of crimson. Their spirits, bound by violence and regret, returned to Hogwarts, unable to rest. Helena became the Grey Lady, her translucent form gliding through Ravenclaw Tower, silver tears tracing eternal paths down her cheeks, forever guarding the secret of her diadem. The Baron, shackled by chains of his own making, his robes forever bloodied and eyes wild with remorse, haunts the dungeons as the Bloody Baron, spectral enforcer, whispering threats to wayward Slytherin ghosts. Rowena never learned the full truth in life. It came to her on her deathbed, confessed by Helena's apparition. The Baron's fatal mission sealed their fates, birthing two of the castle's most poignant hauntings, reminders that even genius breeds tragedy. The winds of change gathered stronger now, carrying the founders toward their final chapters. In the next installment, Chapter 16, The Death of the Founders, will uncover the shrouded circumstances of their passings, plagues, duels, secrets untold, and how their last breaths wove immortality into the very stones of Hogwarts. What hidden curses or final revelations marked their ends? Stay with me as the tale darkens further. Rowena Ravenclaw never fully recovered from the shadow of her daughter's betrayal. That broken heart, poisoned by grief, and the endless Albanian winds whispering Helena's secrets, withered her day by day. She lingered in the highest tower of Hogwarts, her once sharp eyes gazing out over the glen she loved, murmuring incantations that grew fainter with each sunset. The castle itself seemed to mourn her, its staircases hesitating before shifting, as if reluctant to disturb her solitude. One crisp autumn evening, in the 10th century's fading light, Rowena slipped away peacefully in her sleep, her diadem, stolen and lost, haunting her final dreams. Whispers among the students spoke of a raven's cry echoing through the halls that night, a final tolling of her brilliant mind. With Rowena gone, the weight of leadership fell heavier on the remaining two founders. Helga Hufflepuff, ever the steady heart of the school, poured her energies into the kitchens and the greenhouses, ensuring no child went hungry or unwelcomed. But age crept upon her like morning mist over the broad valley of her birth. She had taught generations, her charms filling the great hall, with feasts that bound students in loyalty, her lessons emphasizing the quiet strength of hard work over raw talent. Yet her body, once robust from years of kneading dough and tending herbs, began to falter. Helga passed in the spring, surrounded by her house's badgers, embroidered on tapestries that seemed to watch over her. She was laid to rest in a simple ceremony by the lake, her golden cup placed nearby as a talisman of abundance. The earth itself, aligned with her element, bloomed vibrantly that season, as if reclaiming her gentle spirit. Godric Gryffindor stood alone now, the last pillar of the original vision. The castle's corridors echoed with his footsteps, heavier than before, his sword at his side, a constant reminder of battles fought and friendships fractured. He had duelled Salazar, defended the Muggle-borns, and poured his courage into every stone. But time spares no one, not even the bravest. Godric's hair turned silver like his goblin-forged blade, and his voice, once booming in challenges, softened to counsel. He wandered the grounds, training young Gryffindors in the arts of chivalry, his fairness ensuring the school's doors remained open to all. In his final years, he confided in close allies about the sorting hat, that battered relic infused with the Founder's collective wisdom, now the eternal sorter of souls. Godric was the last to stand among them, outliving Rowena and Helga by years that felt like decades to the aging wizard. His passing came on a stormy winter night, his heart giving out as thunder rolled like applause from the heavens. The school mourned with flickering torches and a silence that blanketed the highlands, his sword vanishing into legend, only to reappear for the worthy. The Founder's deaths marked a profound turning point for Hogwarts. No longer guided by their singular geniuses, the school needed new stewards. Godric had no direct heir, and the trio's harmony had long been shattered by Salazar's absence. Power transitioned quietly to the first headmaster, who wasn't a Founder, a brilliant charms master named Edric Thistlewood, a Hufflepuff alumnus, whose loyalty and quiet competence had earned the trust of all three remaining visionaries. Edric had been Helga's protégé, enchanting the house elves' paths and stabilizing the moving staircases after Rowena's intricate spells began to fray. Godric named him successor in a private ceremony, passing the enchanted keys with a firm grip and a nod of approval. Under Edric, title of headmaster became official, no longer just a shared burden among friends. He ruled from the headmaster's office, now adorned with portraits that stirred faintly, capturing the Founder's essences in oil and magic. Without the original creators, Hogwarts magic began to evolve in subtle, profound ways. The castle, once shaped by their raw wills, Rowena's airy intellect twisting staircases mid-flight, Helga's earthy charms coaxing endless banquets from hearths, Godric's fiery resolve warding off intruders, now adapted to newer hands. Edric and his successors layered their own enchantments, making the protections more resilient against Muggle incursions. The Forbidden Forest thickened, its creatures growing wilder without Helga's soothing touch, birthing legends of acromantulas and centaurs that tested Gryffindor bravery. Charms classes delved deeper into communal spells, Hufflepuff's legacy of inclusivity, fostering innovations like self-refilling goblets that served every house equally. The Great Lakes merpeople, once tamed by Slytherin's watery cunning, became more elusive, their songs carrying eerie warnings, yet the core pulsed stronger. The Sorting Hat's rhymes grew more poetic, drawing from the Founder's archived thoughts to sort with unerring precision. Portraits began conversing across frames, a network born from Rowena's wit, advising professors on ancient wards. The school's magic shifted from the Founder's personal brilliance to a collective hum, woven by hundreds of witches and wizards, enduring persecutions and thriving through the centuries. This evolution carried echoes of loss but also promise. Artifacts like the cup and the lost diadem faded into myth, their powers untapped until darker days. Godric's sword, however, lingered in mystery, hidden within the very tool he cherished most. That tale unfolds in Chapter 17, The Sword in the Hat, where a legendary blade finds its most unexpected guardian, waiting for the heir who can wield it. As the last echoes of the founders faded from Hogwarts halls, with Godric Gryffindor standing as the final sentinel before yielding to the school's first true headmaster, one artifact lingered like a promise unspoken. Tucked away in the brim of his own battered hat, the goblin-forged sword of Gryffindor waited, its silver blade gleaming with an enchantment born of unyielding faith in the human spirit. Godric had commissioned that sword centuries earlier from the finest goblin metalsmiths, their craft unmatched in wizard kind. Pure silver they called it, drawn from deep earth veins untouched by muggle hands, hammered thin yet unbreakable, its ruby-encrusted hilt shaped like a roaring lion's head. He carried it through duels and dragon hunts, through the muggle persecutions that scarred his youth in Godric's Hollow. But as age crept in, he foresaw the fractures his school would face, rifts over blood, over worthiness that Slytherin had sown like poison seeds. So he wove a profound enchantment into the blade itself, one that bound it to his sorting hat. That hat, already brimming with the stitched-in wisdom of all four founders, became the sword's silent guardian. Godric poured his magic into it during long nights by the dying fire in his tower, murmuring incantations that linked the weapon to the hearts of those who donned the hat. Only to the worthy would it reveal itself, those whose courage burned true, whose bravery echoed his own defiance of prejudice, not by bloodline or birthright, but by the fire within. The hat would judge, as it always had, and if the wearer proved a true heir to Gryffindor's valour, the sword would slide from its folds like liquid moonlight, hilt first, ready for the hand that deserved it. Picture the first time it happened. Though records whisper, rather than shout, a young Gryffindor, perhaps a muggle-born orphan, plucked from the streets during those early perilous years, facing some shadowy threat in the castle's depths. The hat settles on their head, its brim sagging low, murmuring secrets of houses and destinies. Then a shimmer, a weight materializing from nowhere. The sword, cool and certain, offers itself, not to the pure-blooded elite, but to the overlooked, the one Salazar would have cast aside. It became legend in hushed dormitory tales, a beacon that Gryffindor House clung to, through the silence that followed the Founders' era. Yet the sword's magic ran deeper, etched into its very metal by goblin runes that Godric enhanced with his own spells. It would only take in that which makes it stronger, refusing poisons or curses that might taint it, absorbing instead essences of pure power. Basilisk venom, that deadly ichor from Slytherin's own monstrous legacy, proved the perfect example. Dripping from the fangs of the serpent hidden in the chamber, it coated the blade during a desperate clash centuries later, searing away impurities, rendering the sword the only thing capable of destroying Horcruxes, forged in dark rituals. The venom didn't corrode, it honed, turning peril into an edge sharper than before. A poetic reversal of the venomous divides the Founders once fought. This was no accident. Godric designed it so, knowing his school would face horrors born of division. The sword drank the basilisk essence not out of malice, but evolution, its silver alloy bonding with the venom at a molecular level. Wizards later puzzled over in hidden tomes. Alchemists speculated it mimicked goblin metallurgy, where metals remembered and adapted, growing resilient against fire, fang, or fiend. Through battles unseen, from goblin rebellions to whispers of darker wars, the sword emerged unscathed, stronger each time, a living testament to selective strength. And in that selectivity lay its truest power, as a symbol of Godric's enduring protection of the unworthy. He who championed every magical child, muggle-born or otherwise, against Slytherin's scorn. He left this blade for them. It appeared not to the arrogant lords of ancient lines, but to the trembling first year with a lion's heart, the half-blood facing expulsion's shadow, the outcast proving their mettle in crisis. Time and again, it materialized from the hat for those society deemed lesser, slicing through basilisks or binding spells, shielding the vulnerable. Gryffindor's last laugh against purity's tyranny, a weapon that chose the humble brave over the haughty pure. Whispers persist of its vanishings and returns, slipping back into the hat after each triumph, patient as stone. Headmasters, after the founders guarded its secret, knowing it answered to no command but the enchantment's call. Through feasts and full moons, it slumbered unseen, until need summoned it forth. Even as Voldemort's shadow lengthened, twisting other founders' relics into abominations, the sword endured pure, a defiant spark in Gryffindor's name. But with the founders gone, their artifacts tucked into legend, Hogwarts entered centuries of silence, where secrets like the swords hid in plain sight, waiting for the next worthy hand. What shadows gathered in those quiet years, and how the castle whispered its warnings. That's for Chapter 18, Centuries of Silence. That goblin-forged sword, now steeped in basilisk venom, hung poised in the Sorting Hat's depths, a silent sentinel against the very monster Slytherin had unleashed. Yet with Godric's final enchantment sealed, Hogwarts turned a page. The founders were gone, their voices stilled, and an era of quiet descended over the castle, like a heavy mist rolling off the Scottish lochs. Generations of students came and went through those enchanted doors, their laughter echoing in the great hall, their footsteps wearing grooves into the stone staircases that twisted without warning. The first headmasters, handpicked from the founders' most trusted allies, steered the school with steady hands. No Parselmouth heir emerged to claim Slytherin's legacy. No serpentine eyes gleamed from hidden lairs. The basilisk slumbered undisturbed, its massive coils coiled in the earth's chill embrace beneath the castle's foundations. Whispers of the Chamber of Secrets lingered at first, traded in hushed tones by seventh years around dying hearth fires. Slytherin's departure had been too dramatic, his Parseltongue curses too vivid in living memory, for the tale to vanish overnight. But years stretched into decades, then centuries. Headmasters combed the dungeons, tapped suspicious sinks, even summoned house elves to probe the pipes. Nothing. The entrance, concealed by that fateful phrase in serpent tongue, yielded no secrets to the uninitiated. By the 12th century, as knights clashed in muggle tourneys across England, the story softened into myth at Hogwarts. Old tapestries depicted Slytherin not as a villain, but a shadowy architect of wonders, his chamber a fable to frighten first years. Scholars in the library pored over crumbling parchments, cross-referencing founders' journals, with no mention of monsters or hidden purges. Skepticism crept in like ivy up the castle walls. Come the 14th century, amid the Black Death's grim shadow over wizardkind, the legend curdled into ridicule. Historians at the Ministry's archives chuckled over tankards of butterbeer, dubbing it Slytherin's grand folly. One particularly pompous wizarding chronicler, Emeric Switch, penned a treatise in claiming the chamber was naught but an elaborate plumbing system gone awry. Slytherin's fen-born obsession with fens, leading to flooded lavatories mistaken for apocalypse. The jest stuck. Schoolbooks caricatured Salazar as a plumber with a wand, his basilisk a mere oversized eel. How the Chamber of Secrets became a myth, and then a joke among historians, unfolded in dusty footnotes and tavern songs, its terror diluted to dormitory pranks. Through these medieval centuries, the four houses themselves began to evolve, their identity sharpening like blades on a whetstone. Gryffindor's fire burned brightest in the chaos of those plague-ridden years, producing daring healers who brewed antidotes under moonlight, venturing into quarantined villages with cloaks of invisibility. Their common room, high in the towers, crackled with tales of heroism, the sword's legend fueling endless Quidditch drills on makeshift pitches. Hufflepuff's earthy loyalty held the school together when fevers claimed staff. Helga's descendants, valley folk at heart, expanded the kitchens into a bustling heartland, feeding orphans and wanderers alike. Their house swelled with those of modest magic, emphasizing toil over talent, and by the late medieval era, they dominated herbology greenhouses, cultivating mandrakes that shrieked through the night. Ravenclaw's airy intellect flourished in secluded towers, where Rowena's heirs pored over star charts and alchemical riddles. The Renaissance dawned early for them, with glens echoing to experimental spells that bent light and time. Diadem lore inspired witch-sharpening charms, drawing eccentric minds from across Europe. Slytherin's water-like cunning adapted slyly. Shunned at first, the house rebuilt through ambition, excelling in potions and secretive duels. Medieval house points tallies show Slytherin surging in the 15th century. Their dungeon lair, a warren of bubbling cauldrons and whispered alliances. The evolution of the four houses over the medieval and Renaissance periods mirrored the wizarding world's own transformation. Tournaments pitted Gryffindor against Slytherin in mock battles, broomsticks slicing twilight skies long before formal Quidditch. Renaissance humanism seeped in, Ravenclaws collaborating with Muggle artists on enchanted portraits, Hufflepuffs trading recipes with continental witches. Rivalries deepened, Gryffindor's bold charges clashing with Slytherin's serpentine strategies, but a fragile unity endured, bound by the Sorting Hat's impartial song. Beneath it all simmered the question of blood. Slytherin's pure blood edict, once a raging schism, reshaped itself over centuries. In the founder's 10th century wake, pure blood meant untainted by Muggle violence, a scar from burnings and witch hunts. Slytherin's heirs clung to it rigidly through the medieval gloom, admitting only those with four wizarding grandparents, scorning half-bloods as diluted streams. But time eroded absolutes. The Renaissance brought prosperity, intermarriages, blooming like forbidden flowers. By the 16th century, as Elizabethans sailed enchanted ships, blood purity shifted. No longer a bar to entry, Hogwarts had long admitted all magical children, but a badge of prestige. Half-bloods like the upstart Weasley line rose in Hufflepuff, their Muggle-born great-grandmothers forgotten in lineage tomes. Pure-blood families, Slytherin purest among them, obsessed over family trees etched in silver, tracing drops back to Merlin rather than barring doors. The changing definition of blood purity through the centuries turned from iron gate to velvet curtain, prejudice persisting in sneers and arranged betrothals. Yet the school thrived on the founder's original inclusivity. Centuries rolled on, the castle's stones whispering forgotten oaths, artifacts gathered dust in vaults, the cup gleaming innocently, the locket heavy with unspoken curses, while the Sorting Hat crooned new generations into houses that had outgrown their sires. Headmasters came and went, wars flickered beyond the wards, but the silence held. No air stirred the depths, until one fateful orphan, born of that blurred bloodline, would speak the serpent's call. In Chapter 19, The Rise of Tom Riddle, discover how a brilliant boy with a hidden gift shattered centuries of quiet, awakening horrors long dismissed as jest. As the centuries rolled on through the medieval mists and into the Renaissance's flickering candlelight, the four houses of Hogwarts solidified their identities, their rivalries sharpening like well-honed wands, while tales of hidden chambers faded to dusty footnotes in forgotten tomes, dismissed by scholars as mere legend. Then, in 1942, a boy arrived at Hogwarts whose shadow would eclipse them all. Tom Marvolo Riddle, 11 years old, stepped off the Hogwarts Express with eyes like polished obsidian, an orphan from a grim London workhouse where Muggle cruelties had forged him in secrecy. No family crests adorned his robes. He carried only a second-hand wand and a hunger that no feast could sate. Sorted into Slytherin amid whispers of his uncanny charm, he glided through corridors like a serpent through grass. Top of every class, prefect by 5th year, his smile disarming prefects and professors alike. Yet beneath that prefect's badge burned a fire inherited from a lineage he would soon unearth. Tom's nights were spent not in the Slytherin dorm's green glow, but in the library's restricted aisles, poring over yellowed parchments under the flicker of Lumos spells. He traced the founder's bloodlines with a fervour that chilled the house elves who dusted the shelves. Godric's sword, Helga's cup, Rowena's diadem, Salazar's locket. These were no mere heirlooms to him. They pulsed with ancient magic, relics that whispered of immortality, of power unbound by death's frail grasp. It began innocently enough. or so the professors thought, with questions about house ghosts and long-lost artifacts. But Tom dug deeper, charming answers from portraits, unravelling genealogies in the Ministry's archives during summer holes. He learned of his own middle name's Echo, Marvolo Gaunt, a descendant of Slytherin himself. Pure-blood wizards fallen to squalor in a rotting shack, the Gaunt's heirlooms. A locket, heavy with Salazar's cunning, passed down through filthy hands until it vanished. Tom's pulse quickened. He was the heir, marked by the tongue of serpents that stirred one moonlit night in the prefect's bathroom, hissing Parseltongue to a sink that twisted open like a blooming fang. A young orphan discovers the Founder's relics and their true power. In the Slytherin common room's emerald depths, he first beheld the locket, pilfered from a pawn shop where his uncle had pawned it decades before. Slipping it around his neck, he felt Salazar's ambition coil through his veins, a dark current that sharpened his spells and silenced his doubts. From there, the obsession bloomed. Ravenclaw's diadem, lost in Albania's wild crags. He charmed its location from a cursed spirit, Helena's shade perhaps, and claimed it from a hollow tree, its silver band granting visions of wisdom twisted into supremacy. Hufflepuff's cup gleamed in a vault he breached with forged keys, its golden curve promising loyalty eternal, unbreakable. Tom Riddle's obsession with claiming the 4 relics for his Horcruxes consumed him utterly. These weren't trophies. They were vessels for his fractured soul, shards of immortality anchored to the Founder's own legacies. Gryffindor's sword eluded him at first, Goblin's silver gleaming only for the worthy, but the others bent to his will. He performed the rituals in hidden alcoves, the air thick with acrid smoke and screams that echoed only in his mind. Murders cold and calculated. Myrtle's wail the first to fuel the diary's dark birth, though that was but a prelude. The castle stirred under his touch. In his 5th year, driven by Slytherin's vow etched in stone, Tom descended. The discovery of the chamber. How Salazar's plan finally came to fruition. Parseltongue unlocked the bathroom's secret, a serpentine slide plunging into damp stone veins beneath the lake. Torchlight flickered on colossal pillars carved with serpents, their eyes glinting like wet emeralds. At the heart coiled the basilisk, massive and ancient, scales whispering over flagstones as it rose at his command, yellow eyes slitted with hunger. Salazar had built this sanctum centuries ago, a monster for his true heir to unleash upon the unworthy, purging Muggle-borns in a flood of venom and stone. Tom tested its power that year, a petrification here, a vanishing there, whispers of a monster blamed on Hagrid's spider, but he held back, savouring the fear that rippled through halls like Fiendfy's heat. The chamber became his throne room, the basilisk his sentinel, Salazar's dream alive in his hands. Professors puzzled over pipes, groaning in the walls. Students clutched garlic and crucifixes. But Tom smiled through it all, grades flawless, his expulsion averted by charm and lies. By graduation, the relics hung heavy around his neck, or hid in his trunk, soul splinters pulsing with stolen life. He vanished into the world as Lord Voldemort, but Hogwarts bore his scars. The chamber sealed again, waiting the Founder's treasures corrupted into anchors of evil. The houses, once playful rivals, now trembled under the shadow of one boy's rise. And as Tom turned his gaze to the final threads of that twisted tapestry, the story of Hufflepuff's cup takes a turn into pure darkness. What hidden curse awaited him there? Find out next in Chapter 20, The Corruption of the Cup. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew, as young Tom Riddle delved deeper into the shadows of his own fractured ambition. His eyes turned to the remaining relics of Hogwarts founders, treasures whispered about in dusty tomes and forgotten family vaults. Slytherin's locket had already slipped into his grasp. Years earlier, a serpentine prize from his uncle Morfin's wretched hovel. But Hufflepuff's cup, that gleaming emblem of Helga's boundless generosity, called to him next. pulling him into the web of an unwitting descendant whose bloodline would seal her doom. Hepzibah Smith traced her lineage back through the winding valleys of Helga Hufflepuff's earthy domain, a proud Hufflepuff by descent if not by house sorting. She lived in a cramped, opulent Crookshank home in London, surrounded by heirlooms that spoke of her ancestors' legacy, tapestries woven with badgers and cornucopias, silver platters etched with runes of abundance. Hepzibah was no witch of great power, but her vaults brimmed with artifacts collected over generations, each one a testament to the house of loyalty and hard work. She doted on her house elf Hoki, brewing endless cups of tea laced with her own peculiar blends, and she craved admiration for her treasures above all else. That vanity, rooted in her Hufflepuff blood, became the thread that unravelled her life. It was 1946 when Riddle, now a sleek young man in his early 20s, with a job at Borgin and Burke's, knocked on her door. Posing as a charming salesman of curiosities, he flattered her endlessly, his voice smooth as polished serpent skin. Hepzibah, starved for company and eager to boast, invited him in, her cheeks flushing with pride. She showed him Slytherin's locket first, dangling it from her fingers like a forbidden fruit, claiming it as her own through some convoluted family tie. Riddle's eyes gleamed, but he feigned polite interest, his mind already calculating. Then, with a flourish, she unveiled the true gem, Helga Hufflepuff's golden cup, small and exquisite, engraved with the badger emblem, and two handles curved like welcoming arms. It sat on a velvet cushion, shimmering under the low light of her parlour lamps, its surface etched with faint charms that once multiplied food and drink for the hungry and weary. That cup wasn't just gold, it pulsed with Helga essence, a symbol forged in an age when she welcomed every child to Hogwarts tables, regardless of blood or skill. Helga had crafted it herself, they say, during those early harmonious years with the other founders, using charms to ensure no student ever went without. Picture it in her hands, warm from her touch, filling with honeyed mead or hearty stew at the mere thought of need. It embodied her justice, a tireless labour in the kitchens, enchanting feasts that bound the school in shared warmth. Hepzibah caressed it lovingly, recounting tales passed down through her line, how it had survived Muggle persecutions, hidden in broad valleys and earthy burrows. A Hufflepuff ancestry blinded her to the danger. It fueled her pride, making her boast to a stranger who hungered for exactly what she offered. Riddle returned a week later, his plan coiled tight. He brought her a gift, a perfect azalea, blooming unnaturally vivid, and slipped a lethal poison into her evening cocoa, administered by the unwitting Hoki. Hepzibah convulsed in her armchair, the cup tumbling from her grasp as foam bubbled from her lips. Hoki found her mistress cold, the house elf's panicked confession twisted by magic into a tale of accidental overdose. But Riddle was gone, the cup vanished into his pocket, his face already shedding the mask of innocence. That night, in some shadowed lair, he performed the unspeakable rite, murdering Myrtle from the school bathrooms to cleave his soul once more. He poured that splintered fragment into the cup, twisting Helga's vessel of kindness into a Horcrux, a cursed chalice harbouring his fractured essence, forever staining its golden glow with malice. Years later, as Lord Voldemort rose in terror, he entrusted this defiled relic to Bellatrix Lestrange, his most fanatical follower. She stashed it deep in her vault at Gringotts, the Goblin Bank's labyrinth of stone and spells. Hailed as the world's most secure stronghold, iron bars reinforced with ancient runes, dragon guards breathing fire over piles of gold, detection charms that screamed at the slightest intrusion. Yet there it sat, Hufflepuff's cup, mocking the very values it once upheld, a symbol of Earth's nurturing bounty, now cradled in the cold heart of greed and goblin avarice, protected by the very fortress that could not shield it from its own corruption. The cup endured in that vault for decades, its dark passenger whispering through the stone walls, waiting for the day it would be claimed again. But that leads us straight into Chapter 21, the defilement of the diadem, where another founder's legacy meets an even more tragic unravelling. What secrets did Rowena's lost crown hold that drew the same destroyer back to its haunted path? With Hufflepuff's golden cup now pulsing with a fragment of his shattered soul, Tom Riddle set his cunning gaze on the next prize from the Founder's shadowed legacy. Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem, a silver circlet etched with the words, "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure," had vanished centuries earlier, its wisdom-lending magic fading into whispers among Ravenclaw ghosts. Riddle, ever the scholar in Slytherin robes, knew its power could anchor his immortality deeper still. He prowled the drafty towers of Hogwarts under moonlit nights in the early 1940s, his prefect badge glinting like a predator's eye. The Grey Lady, Helena Ravenclaw herself, glided through those same halls, her translucent form a perpetual mournful silhouette against the starry windows. Rowena's daughter had stolen the diadem in a fit of youthful rebellion, craving wisdom that outshone her mother's brilliance. Fleeing to Albania, she'd been trapped by the Bloody Baron, a jealous suitor, who in remorseful fury ended her life with a dagger's thrust. Now she haunted the castle, reluctant to speak of her shame. Riddle spotted her pattern, the way she lingered near the Ravenclaw common room, eyes downcast. He approached not with force, but with the velvet precision of a serpent's whisper. Feigning admiration for Ravenclaw lore, he drew her into conversation, his voice smooth as polished obsidian. He praised her intellect, echoed her mother's ideals, and subtly flattered her ghostly pride. For the first time in ages, someone listened without pity. She confessed the hiding place at last, the words spilling like a long-held breath. A remote hollow in the Albanian forest, where dark trees choked the sun and ancient wards lingered faint. The journey tested even Riddle's nerve. Sneaking from Hogwarts under cover of disillusionment charms, he apparated as far as wizarding law allowed a 17-year-old, then trekked on foot through mist-shrouded mountains into Albania's wild heart. The forest there was no mere woodland. It seethed with cursed undergrowth, where branches clawed like skeletal hands and the air hummed with forgotten spells. Acromantulas skittered in the periphery, their eyes glowing faintly, while spectral winds carried echoes of long-dead parcel mouths. Days blurred into nights of evasion, his wand slashing through enchanted vines that whispered temptations of power. Deep in a gnarled oak's roots, he found it, the diadem, tarnished but intact, its runes still shimmering with latent genius. As his fingers closed around it, a rush of borrowed insight flooded him. Visions of Ravenclaw's strategies, her unyielding pursuit of knowledge. But Riddle craved more than wisdom. He hungered for eternity. Back at Hogwarts, the murder of Myrtle in the girls' bathroom provided the sacrificial spark. In that fetid chamber, amid steam and sobs, he performed the unspeakable rite. The diadem drank deep of his soul splinter, twisting from a beacon of intellect into a vessel of malice, its silver warped subtly, the inscription now mocking any who dared wear it, filling minds with cunning whispers that eroded sanity over time. Safely ensconced once more within Hogwarts walls, Riddle sought the perfect sanctuary, the room of requirement, that elusive chamber which morphed to the seeker's deepest need, called to him. He envisioned a hiding place amid forgotten clutter, and there it appeared, a vast dusty expanse, piled high with broken furniture, discarded cauldrons, and century-old tomes. Tucked into a cabinet-shadowed recess, disguised among the detritus, the diadem slumbered undetected. Generations of students passed it by, unaware that Rowena's treasure now harboured a piece of the Dark Lord himself, waiting patiently for the castle's final siege. That defilement marked another step in Riddle's ascent, corrupting Ravenclaw's air of pure thought with the stagnation of Undeath. Yet his collection of Founder's relics pressed onward, drawn now to the serpentine depths of Slytherin's lineage. In the next chapter, The Locket's Dark Path, you'll uncover the tangled web of betrayal and blood that forged Salazar's most infamous heirloom, a tale so insidious it ensnared even those closest to power. As the diadem vanished into the shadowed depths of that Albanian forest, Tom Riddle turned his gaze to the final prize from Slytherin's line. A locket that had already cursed generations with its insidious weight. This was no mere trinket. It was Salazar Slytherin's own, passed down through his bloodline like a chain that bound the wearer to whispers of ancient ambition and unrelenting darkness. The Slytherin family, once proud wielders of cunning and power, had dwindled into the Gaunts, a clan shrouded in squalor and unravelling minds. They clung to a crumbling shack on the edge of the Muggle village of Little Hangleton, their home a festering heap of rot and forgotten glory. Marvolo Gaunt, the patriarch, draped the locket around his neck like a badge of supremacy, its golden S gleaming against his threadbare robes. He ranted to anyone who would listen, or no one at all, about his descent from the great founder, spitting Parseltongue curses at the air while his eyes burned with a fanatic gleam. Poverty gnawed at them relentlessly. They scavenged like rats, stealing from neighbours, their magic twisted into petty malice rather than mastery. Marvolo's daughter, Merup, withered in the corner, her spirit crushed under the weight of abuse and isolation. Her once sparkling eyes dulled to hollow despair, and Morfinn the son, feral and violent, bore scars from Azkaban that only deepened his rage. Madness seeped into their bones, generation by generation, fueled by inbreeding and the locket's subtle poison, turning noble blood into a toxic legacy of delusion and decay. That locket, heavy with Slytherin's enchantment, exacted a psychological toll on those who dared wear it, burrowing into the mind like roots in soft earth. For the Gaunts, it amplified every flaw. Marvolo's pride swelled to paranoia, convincing him the world conspired against his pure lineage, his nights filled with screams at phantom muggles clawing at his door. Merup felt its chill most acutely. As she fastened it around her neck in secret moments of longing, it fed her desperation, twisting love into obsession, whispering that only through forbidden magic could she claim what she craved. Wearers spoke of a cold void in the chest, a relentless hunger that no food or triumph could sate, dreams haunted by serpents coiling tighter each night. It drained vitality, leaving shells of people who clutched it tighter, even as it hollowed them out, a parasite disguised as heritage. Desperation forced Merup's hand, pregnant with the child of a muggle she had bewitched. She slipped the locket from her father's grasp one fog-shrouded evening, and trudged to the smoky back alleys of London. There, in the dim confines of Borgin and Berks, she pawned it for a pittance, just enough gold to buy oblivion in a bottle, or the fleeting illusion of affection. Mr. Burke, ever the opportunist, recognised its worth immediately. The serpentine S a dead giveaway of its founder's mark. He tucked it away, later selling it to a collector who prized such relics above all else. That collector was Hepzibah Smith, a plump witch of distant Hufflepuff lineage, whose opulent home overflowed with antiques and arrogance. She wore the locket proudly during tea, dangling it before young Tom Riddle, who had risen through the ranks at Borgin and Berks with a charm as sharp as a curse. As he sipped from porcelain cups, her fingers brushed the gold, boasting of its Slytherin origins. Riddle's eyes narrowed, the hunger igniting within him. The same void the locket had carved in others now mirrored in his soul. That night, Hepzibah and her elf lay dead. The locket vanished into Riddle's grasp, one more step toward his fractured immortality. Years later, as Lord Voldemort, he poured his soul's fragment into it, the Horcrux ritual searing the chamber with screams that echoed off stone walls. But first he concealed it in a place of pure torment, a jagged cave by the sea, its entrance hidden behind illusory seawater that parted only for the worthy or the doomed. Inside, the air hung thick with brine and despair, jagged rocks dripping with infernal lake water that burned like acid, heavily warded with spells of agony, inferni that clawed at the intruder's mind, false doors leading to drowning voids, and a basin of potion that forced drinkers to relive their worst fears in endless loops. The cave became a fortress of suffering. Voldemort placed the locket in that emerald green potion, its glow pulsing like a malevolent heart, daring any thief to brave the horrors for a taste of Slytherin's cursed legacy. Regulus Black, drawn by whispers of his master's secrets, ventured there decades on, the locket's allure pulling him despite the dread. He drank the potion's fire, convulsing as visions of drowning and betrayal tore at him, his scream swallowed by the lapping waves. Creature watched, helpless, as the medallion claimed another victim, its psychological grip unyielding even in isolation. Harry Potter and Dumbledore would later face it too, the cave's chill seeping into their very thoughts, the locket mocking them with insidious voices that preyed on insecurities. Dumbledore's losses, Harry's doubts, proving its toll endured beyond the gaunt's fall. The locket's dark path twisted through poverty's grip, mad lineages, and watery graves, a thread of corruption binding Slytherin's ambition to Voldemort's reign. But as that relic lay waiting in its infernal cradle, greater conflicts brewed back at Hogwarts itself, where the school's very essence hung in the balance. In the next chapter, Chapter 23, The Battle for the School's Soul, you'll uncover how these shadows ignited a war that threatened to shatter the Founder's dream forever. What dark forces rallied there, and who would rise to defend its heart as the Slytherin locket sank into the depths of that watery cave, a prison of despair forged by Voldemort's own hand. The Founder's relics seemed finally silenced, their ancient power corrupted beyond recognition. Yet those twisted artifacts were never truly the heart of the struggle. They were mere echoes, symptoms of a deeper war that had simmered for 1,000 years, now boiling over in the corridors of Hogwarts itself. During the 1990s, that decade marked the school's darkest hour, when the castle's very foundations trembled under threats both external and internal. Voldemort's shadow lengthened across the wizarding world, but inside Hogwarts, the battle lines formed along divides as old as the stones. Pure-blood families rallied behind whispers of supremacy, while others clung to the inclusive dream that had built the school. It wasn't just about a Dark Lord's return. It was a clash of visions, where every choice, every alliance, tested the soul of the institution. Godric, Helga, Rowena, and Salazar had conjured from the mists of the Scottish Highlands. Picture the Great Hall during those years, its enchanted ceilings swirling with storm clouds that mirrored the unrest below. Students sorted into houses that embodied the Founder's virtues. But those same houses now pulled in opposite directions. Gryffindor's fire of courage burned bright against Slytherin's cunning waters, just as they had in the 10th century. The air grew thick with suspicion, the earth of Hufflepuff's loyalty tested by betrayals, and Ravenclaw's wit sharpened into arguments over blood status. Feasts that once celebrated unity turned tense, silverware clinking amid hushed debates about who truly belonged. At the centre of this storm stood two boys, their rivalry a living embodiment of the Founder's ancient schism. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, embodied Godric Gryffindor's unyielding bravery and fairness. Marked by that lightning scar, he arrived at Hogwarts not as a pure-blood heir, but as an orphan raised by muggles. His heart open to friends from every house and every background, he charged into danger without question, wielding the sword of Gryffindor itself in the Chamber of Secrets, proving that worth lay not in lineage but in action. His defiance of blood purity echoed Godric's insistence on admitting any child with magic in their veins, no matter their birth. Across the hall, Draco Malfoy carried Salazar Slytherin's legacy like a badge of entitlement, pale and sharp-featured, with that perpetual sneer masking deeper insecurities. Draco parroted his father's pure-blood dogma. He sneered at mudbloods, coveted the Slytherin common room's green glow and silver serpents, and dreamed of a school purged of the unworthy. His ambition drove him to form the Inquisitorial Squad, to brandish his wand in the name of order that favoured his kind alone. In their clashes, on the Quidditch pitch, in the halls, through the Department of Mysteries, Harry versus Draco became the modern echo of Godric versus Salazar, a duel not just of spells but of ideologies that could either unite or shatter the school. This proxy war for the Founder's original ideologies played out in every decision the castle faced. When Dolores Umbridge's regime stifled learning with pink parchment and blood quills, it was Slytherin's resourcefulness twisted into control, rejected by Gryffindor's bold resistance through Dumbledore's army. Death Eater infiltrations echoed Salazar's hidden chambers, meant to safeguard purity but now breeding terror. Even the house elf Winky, loyal to a fault like Helga's earthbound justice, suffered under the weight of divided loyalties. The Founders' dream of a sanctuary for all magic had curdled into factions, with the 1990s forcing a reckoning. Would Hogwarts remain a beacon for every witch and wizard, or succumb to the serpent's venom? Amid this turmoil, one voice grew frantic, its stitches fraying under the strain of foresight. The Sorting Hat, that battered relic infused with the Founders' collective wisdom, had sung warnings for centuries. But in the 1990s, its pleas turned desperate. Placed atop the stool, year after year, it poured out lyrics laced with urgency, begging for unity in the face of looming division. Oh, may I help you sort them all into their rightful houses? It crooned in 1991, but by 1996, the song sharpened. Houses must cast aside old rivalries, or the school would fall to an enemy within. Why the desperation? The Hat knew the history it embodied. It had witnessed Salazar's departure, felt the rift widen when pure blood ideals clashed with the other's openness. Now, as Voldemort's influence seeped back through his heir-like followers, it saw the cycle repeating. Harry Potter himself heard it most clearly during his first sorting, the Hat tempted by Slytherin, but placed in Gryffindor for his thirst to prove himself. Later begged by Harry to sort the sword with him, it lamented lost unity. Each warning grew more pointed, because the Hat, threaded with Godric's own magic, sensed the basilisk's shadow returning, the relics stirring, and the soul of Hogwarts hanging by a thread. Division had driven Salazar away once. It could destroy everything now. Students felt it too, in the chill of the dungeons and the warmth of the Gryffindor Tower. Hermione Granger's brilliance channeled Rowena's wit into S.P.E.W., fighting for the overlooked, while Ron Weasley's loyalty mirrored Helga's steadfast earth. Yet Slytherin's house, under pressure from Malfoy patriarchs, harboured seeds of doubt. Some like Blaise Zabini aloof, others like Theodore Nott quietly conflicted. The Triwizard Tournament's chaos, with its ancient goblet of fire selecting champions amid sabotage, forced houses to ally or fracture further. Cedric Diggory's death in the graveyard ripped open old wounds. Hufflepuff's cup, still hidden then, waiting to claim more souls. As the Battle of Hogwarts loomed, the castle itself seemed to choose sides. Moving staircases shifted to aid the brave. Portraits whispered secrets of hidden passages Slytherin had carved. The Founders' statues in the entrance hall stood sentinel, Gryffindor's lion roaring silently against the serpent's coil. This wasn't mere schoolyard rivalry, it was the soul of Hogwarts at stake, a 1,000-year vision refined in the crucible of the 1990s. And those relics we traced through poverty, manipulation, and horror, their final chapter awaits, twisted powers confronting the very students who embodied the fight. In Chapter 24, the destruction of the relics, discover the Infernos, the blades and the unbreakable wills that finally shattered Voldemort's immortality. Or so it seemed. What desperate measures would Harry and his allies take to reclaim the Founders' true legacy? Stay with us to witness the end of an era. As the dust settled from that climactic clash between Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy, mirroring the ancient feud between Godric Gryffindor and Salazar Slytherin, the war for Hogwarts' soul shifted to a quieter, more profound reckoning. The Founders' relics, once beacons of their virtues, had been twisted into anchors of Voldemort's immortality, demanding a final purge to reclaim the school's purity. In the shadowed vaults of Gringotts, deep beneath the streets of Diagon Alley, the first strike unfolded amid chaos and fire. Bellatrix Lestrange's vault, swollen with dark treasures, held Helga Hufflepuff's golden cup, that humble vessel of loyalty and kindness, now fractured by a sliver of Riddle's soul. Griffook the Goblin, driven by centuries-old resentment toward wizardkind, guided Harry, Ron, and Hermione through booby-trapped corridors lined with scorching metal and multiplying artifacts. The air grew thick with the acrid tang of cursed gold, every step echoing like a heartbeat in the goblin-forged stone. When the cup tumbled free during their desperate escape, it seemed fate itself had intervened, preserving it for the blade that would end its torment. Back in the room of requirement, that ever-shifting sanctuary of hidden desires, the systematic dismantling of the Founder's corrupted items began in earnest. Ron Weasley, his face etched with the scars of doubt and cave horrors, gripped a venom-dripping fang from the Chamber of Secret's long-dead basilisk, that monstrous relic of Slytherin's legacy. The serpent whose gaze petrified the unworthy had yielded teeth sharp enough to pierce the enchantments no spell could touch. He plunged it into the cup's gleaming surface, watching as black smoke writhed from the wound like a dying scream, the soul fragment shrieking into oblivion. Helga's cup, symbol of her boundless acceptance, shattered into irreparable shards, its curse lifted at last. Not far away, amid the blazing inferno sparked by Crabbe's uncontrolled fiend fire, Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem met a similar end, perched on a crumbling bust. Its blue velvet faded, but inscriptions whispering promises of wisdom. The diadem had lured generations with false brilliance. Voldemort had hidden it here, in the castle's heart, turning Ravenclaw's pursuit of knowledge into a trap of madness. Ron, emerging from the flames with the basilisk fang still clutched in his fist, drove it through the crown's centre. The air filled with the stench of burning silver and the faint ethereal wail of a wisdom betrayed as the Horcrux crumbled to ash. Rowena's dream of enlightenment, corrupted in an Albanian forest, was cleansed in the fire of necessity. Then came Slytherin's locket, the most insidious of them all, retrieved from a watery cavern where waves crashed like accusations of betrayal. That pea-shaped heirloom, heavy with the weight of pure-blood supremacy, dangled from Ron's hand during their flight from Malfoy Manor. Its eyes glinted with malice, conjuring visions of deepest fears, Ron's insecurities blooming into serpentine temptations. In the dim light of the Forest of Dean, Harry pried it open, and under the sword of Gryffindor's goblin-wrought gleam, Ron severed the chain. The basilisk fang and the sword of Gryffindor, as the only tools of destruction, proved their mettle once more. Ron stabbed through the locket's heart, the soul fragments howl, echoing like Salazar's departing curse from the castle walls a millennium before. Godric's own sword, pulled from the sorting hat by worthy hands, time and again, absorbed the basilisk venom from that fateful chambered duel years earlier. Its silver blade, etched with runes of courage, drank in the poison that felled Nagini too, the last Horcrux linking back to the Founder's shadowed age. No Avada Kedavra, no Sectum Sempra could unmake these abominations. Only the fang's primal venom and the sword's enchanted edge, forged in goblin fire and Gryffindor's unyielding valor. This wasn't mere destruction. It was the symbolic cleansing of Hogwarts history during the Second Wizarding War. As Voldemort's forces stormed the battlements and giants hurled boulders into the towers, these acts unfolded like rituals, reclaiming the Founder's true intent. Helga's inclusivity freed from soul-splitting tyranny, Rowena's intellect purified from manipulative deceit, Salazar's cunning stripped of genocidal ambition. Even Gryffindor's blade, never fully corrupted, served as the instrument of redemption, echoing through the castle's stones where the four once walked in unity before the rift. In the Great Hall, amid the wounded and the weary, Harry faced the final guardian of these legacies. Fiendfire raged unchecked, devouring Malfoy's shattered broom and Crabbe's twisted form. But the relic's end marked a turning point. The air hummed with released magic, the castle's ancient wards sighing in relief as the Founder's ghosts, metaphorical and perhaps more, seemed to stir. Voldemort's immortality cracked, his grasp on Hogwarts' soul slipping away, all because a boy who could speak to snakes and a sword that chose its master refused to let history repeat. The war's fury peaked in the forbidden forest shadows and the castle's shattered courtyards. But these quiet stabbings and strikes wove the true thread of victory. Hogwarts, born from persecution's ashes, shed the founders' defiled inheritance like a serpent's skin, emerging renewed. The relic's demise closed a 1,000-year circle, from Slytherin's secret chamber to the basilisk's final utility, from Gryffindor's hat-borne blade to its venomous purpose. Yet whispers lingered in the castle's drafts, hints of presences unbound by flesh or Horcrux chains. Up in Act 25, the ghostly guardians will uncover the spectral watchers who bridged the Founders' era to these modern reckonings, revealing secrets that even the destruction of relics couldn't silence. With the basilisk fang shattering the final Horcruxes and Gryffindor's sword flashing through the shadows to reclaim purity. Hogwarts stood cleansed of those twisted relics, yet the Founders' true spirits never truly faded. They echoed eternally in the translucent figures, drifting through the castle's corridors, the house ghosts, those ethereal custodians who whisper the unvarnished truths of Godric, Helga, Rowena, and Salazar. Long after stone and steel had been defiled, these spectral inhabitants aren't mere apparitions haunting the towers for amusement. They serve as living archives, embodiments of the Founders' raw personalities, unfiltered by time or legend. Nearly headless Nick, with his ruff barely containing his half-severed head, floats through Gryffindor Tower like a knight-errant from Godric's own age. His pompous duels and chivalric boasts mirroring the bold swagger of Gryffindor himself. He regales first years with tales of reckless bravery, not the sanitized versions in textbooks, but gritty accounts of charges into Muggle battlefields, where Godric's sword first tasted blood, his laughter booming fair and fierce against any foe. Over in the Hufflepuff common room, buried deep in the earth's embrace, the fat friar bumbles about with his benevolent grin, his robes forever stained from potion mishaps and feast preparations. He embodies Helga's unwavering loyalty, chuckling over cauldrons as he recounts her tireless nights enchanting kitchens to feed orphans fleeing persecution. Her hands collars not from spells, but from kneading dough for the masses. Students feel her justice in his gentle scoldings, her hard work in his endless patience for the overlooked badger. High in Ravenclaw's airy heights, the Grey Lady glides silently, her translucent form a chill draught through the stars, preserving Rowena's piercing intellect with every sorrowful glance. Helena Ravenclaw, daughter of the Founder herself, carries her mother's wit like a veiled riddle, dropping hints of creative genius that spark the school's very name from a dream of a warty hog. Her presence sharpens young minds, echoing Rowena's relentless curiosity that mapped moving staircases and dreamed up the lake's enchantments. And lurking in Slytherin's dungeons, where green light flickers off damp stone, the bloody Baron's chains rattle like a serpent's warning. His bloodied robes, a grim testament to Salazar's cunning depths. His brooding silence and sudden rages capture the resourcefulness born of fen marshes, the ambition that carved hidden chambers before the rift tore them apart. But why did nearly headless Nick, the fat friar, and others like the Grey Lady and Bloody Baron stay behind, bound to these houses for centuries? They weren't random wanderers. Each chose Undeath's vigil out of fierce devotion, unfinished oaths sworn in the Founders' era. Nick, executed by a dull axe for practicing witchcraft without a proper beheading, returned to Gryffindor Tower to honour Godric's call for bravery in all magical souls, refusing the afterlife until every lion-hearted student knew true valour. The fat friar, forgiving even his murderers with a friar's mercy, lingered to nurture Helga's vision of unity, his ghost form forever mending the divides she healed with charms and kindness. Helena, betrayed in life by the Baron she loved, haunts Ravenclaw to safeguard her mother's lost diadem secrets, while he, tormented by guilt, prowls Slytherin as self-imposed penance, ensuring Salazar's heir would wield cunning without blind hatred. In their endless drifts through banquets and dorms, these ghosts preserve the Founders' original personalities, not through statues or songs, but through intimate reenactments, their ectoplasmic forms flickering like candle flames against the castle's chill. Nick's feasts mimic Godric's wild victories, complete with illusory swordplay that draws cheers from the bold. The friar's herb gardens bloom under ghostly fingers, whispering Helga's recipes for feasts that fed the persecuted. The Grey Lady's riddles unlock Rowena's creative sparks, and the Baron's glares teach Salazar's strategic whispers in the dark. Yet even these guardians clutch secrets about the Founders' private lives, whispered too tender or shadowed for living ears. Nick knows of Godric's hidden fears. The night he wept in Godric's Hollow over Muggle friends lost to witch hunts, his fairness born from personal scars. The fat friar guards Helga's quiet heartbreaks, her unspoken love for a valley farmer who shunned her magic, fueling her justice for the lowly. Helena veils Rowena's maternal regrets, the Glenbourne witch's desperate searches for her runaway daughter amid fevered dreams of hogs and cliffs, and the Baron, his silence buries Salazar's deepest shame. The pure-blood zealot's forbidden tears for a Muggle-born apprentice he mentored in secret. The Fen-dweller's cunning twisted by a betrayal that birthed the Chamber's monster. These untold fragments paint the Founders not as marble ideals, but as flesh and blood witches and wizards scarred by their time, their virtues forged in persecution's fire. The ghosts, in floating beside hearths and beds, ensure no Horcrux-tainted relic could erase that humanity. Their chill breaths a bridge from 10th century rifts to the castle's beating heart. As these spectral threads weave the past into the present, we turn now to Chapter 26, the modern Hogwarts legacy, where you'll uncover how these ghostly echoes and Founder ideals pulse through today's witches and wizards, reshaping rivalries and revelations in ways that might just redefine the castle forever. Those house ghosts, eternally bound to the corridors they once roamed, served as living echoes of the Founders' purest ideals. Nearly headless Nick upholding Gryffindor's chivalry with his awkward dignity, the fat friar embodying Hufflepuff's boundless kindness amid the feasts he could no longer taste, the Grey Lady whispering Ravenclaw's thirst for hidden truths through misty veils, and even the bloody Baron, Slytherin's brooding sentinel, reminding all of ambition tempered by remorse. Their presence lingered like faint candlelight in the castle's vast halls, guiding generations toward the unity the Founders once dreamed of, even as shadows of division threatened to eclipse it. In the smoke-choked dawn after the Battle of Hogwarts, the school emerged transformed, its ancient stones bearing the fresh wounds of war, crumbled towers from Fiendfire's rage, the great hall's enchanted ceiling shattered like a broken dream, and the ground scarred by giants' footsteps and curses' fury. Yet from those ruins rose a Hogwarts reborn, not just rebuilt with Phoenix tears and Howlf labour, but redefined in its very soul. The Ministry poured resources into restoration, but it was the students and staff who reshaped its heart. New wards woven stronger than ever to shield against dark incursions. Classrooms expanded to welcome more young witches and wizards from every corner of the wizarding world, and memorials etched into the walls honouring the fallen. Fred Weasley's prankster plaque that still sparks faint fireworks, Remus Lupin's tribute amid the defence against the Dark Arts Tower, and Severus Snape's quiet alcove where potions simmer eternally in his memory. The air in those early post-war years hummed with a tentative hope, the castle's magic pulsing warmer, as if the castle itself had learned from the bloodshed. Moving staircases realigned with gentler creaks, the Whomping Willow stood sentinel without its former fury, and the Forbidden Forest's centaurs emerged to offer uneasy alliances. Professors like Minerva McGonagall, now headmistress, enforced curricula that wove the Founders' virtues into every lesson, not as rival badges, but as intertwined threads of strength. Muggle-born enrollment surged without fear, half-bloods walked unbowed, and even pure-blood families began sending children without the old prejudices whispering in their ears. This shift deepened as the four houses began to reconcile, their ancient rivalries dissolving like mist under a warming sun. Gryffindors and Hufflepuffs, once casual allies, now shared study sessions in the cozy Badger common room, trading bravery for loyalty's steadfast support. Ravenclaws lent their eagle-eyed intellect to Slytherin schemes, turning cunning into collaborative triumphs during inter-house academic challenges that replaced old feuds. Quidditch pitches, once battlegrounds of house pride, hosted unity matches where green and scarlet robes mingled on the same victorious team, cheers echoing across the lake without a trace of venom. The Sorting Hat itself, in its annual song, sang less of division and more of harmony, its patched brim trembling as it declared, "In unity our strength is found, four houses bound." At the centre of this healing stood the end of the Slytherin stigma, a quiet revolution that unravelled centuries of suspicion. No longer were serpent banners synonymous with dark lords or blood purity rants. Instead, Slytherin stepped forward as heroes in the light. Scorpius Malfoy, son of the reformed Draco, navigated friendships across houses, his ambition fueling reforms rather than revenge. Professor Slughorn's return brought a warmer serpent legacy, mentoring students of all bloods, with his influential network turned toward good. The house common room beneath the lake, once a lair of whispers and plots, opened its doors wider. Windus revealing merpeople schools, where students learned diplomacy from the depths. The basilisk's legacy was scrubbed clean, its chamber sealed forever, and Slytherin pride shifted to resourcefulness that served the whole school, proving Salazar's vision could thrive without his venomous caveats. Wizards and witches who once sneered at the green-trimmed robes now celebrated them, with inter-house couples strolling the grounds hand in hand, prefects from rival houses patrolling together under starlit skies. The house point system evolved too, awarding collective bonuses for school-wide achievements, the lines until the hourglasses in the entrance hall overflowed with mingled gems. Ruby, sapphire, emerald and topaz swirling as one. This reconciliation wasn't overnight. Scars from the war ran deep, and old habits died hard. Yet year by year, the castle's magic knit the houses closer, the founders' artifacts. Goblin sword gleaming in the headmaster's office, cup restored to honour, diadem's wisdom archived, standing as symbols not of loss, but of reclaimed potential. Even in this brighter era, mysteries endure, shadows that tease the imagination. Deep within Hogwarts' labyrinthine depths, whispers persist of other chambers yet to be found, echoes of Salazar's cunning, perhaps hidden vaults crafted by Rowena's foresight, or earthy sanctums from Helga's hand. Explorers like the post-war Ravenclaw clubs have mapped forgotten passages, uncovering booby-trapped rooms filled with archaic charms and riddles unsolved. The Room of Requirement, that ultimate secret, hints at more. Suits of armour recounting sealed doors that appear only to the worthy poltergeists like Peeves, cackling about deeper pits than the plumbers. Are there basilisk-like guardians slumbering elsewhere, keyed to heirs unknown, or Hufflepuff troves of enchanted foods that multiply endlessly? The castle breathes with such secrets, its stones holding breaths from 1,000 years, daring the bold to seek them. As we stand at this modern threshold, gazing back at the founder's fractured dream made whole, one question lingers like an uncast spell. What might have unfolded if the rift had never torn them apart? That's exactly what we'll explore next in Chapter 27. What if Salazar had stayed, with the houses now truly reconciled after the Battle of Hogwarts, and the shadow of Slytherin's stigma finally lifted? It's worth pausing amid these stone walls to ask, what if that ancient rift had never torn them apart? What if Salazar Slytherin, the cunning master from the Fens, had chosen to stay, his vision bending just enough to align with the others? Picture the castle in those early centuries, its towers rising unscarred by division. The four founders, bound by their shared peril from Muggle torches and pitchforks, pour their magics into a single unbreakable vision. Godric's fire-tempered sword gleams beside Helga's golden cup on the same high table. Rowena's diadem whispers wisdom to all who seek it. And Salazar's locket pulses with ambition that lifts every student, not just the pure-blooded elite. No chamber of secrets lurks beneath the lake. No basilisk coils in forgotten depths. Instead, Slytherin's hidden passages weave through the castle like veins of silver, guiding lost first years to safety or scholars to midnight libraries, their secrets unlocked by riddles that test wit over lineage. In this unbroken harmony, the Sorting Hat, imbued with all four minds, sings a different song on that first Great Hall feast. No houses divide the new arrivals into rival camps echoing elemental fires, waters, airs and earths. Perhaps Salazar's insistence on resourcefulness sparks debate, his scarred memories of Muggle cruelty fueling talks that reshape the curriculum from the start. Classes blend Gryffindor's daring duels with Hufflepuff's patient herbology, Ravenclaw's celestial charts with Slytherin's subtle potions that bend shadows to heal rather than harm. Young witches and boys of every blood sit shoulder to shoulder, their wands sparking in unified charms that light the highlands like auroras, forging spells no single house could dream alone. The wizarding world blooms differently, without the poison of blood purity ever taking root. No Slytherin line hoards parcel tongue as a mark of supremacy, passed down like a tainted crown. Salazar, tempered by his friend's resolve, channels his cunning into defences against the true enemy. Those Muggle mobs still hunting in the valleys, he crafts wards that cloak entire villages, his ambition turning inward to build a society where half-bloods and Muggle-borns aren't whispers or slurs, but the vibrant core. Families intermarry freely, their magics hybridizing into wilder forms. Potions that mend Muggle wounds without trace. Broomsticks swift as thought for aerial scouts. The Ministry, born later from this unity, stands as a single fortress in London, its departments humming with talent unshackled by prejudice. No Voldemort rises from pure blood fever dreams. His locket stays a mere heirloom, gathering dust beside Helga's cup in a founder's vault, symbols of collective pride rather than fractured hate. Hogwarts itself evolves in ways that ripple across centuries. Without Slytherin's departure carving that first wound, the house system might soften or transform entirely. Whispers among the ghosts suggest a fifth house could have emerged, born from Salazar's lingering influence. A house of ambition, its banners shimmering green and silver threaded with water's flow, admitting those whose cunning bridges the others. Students sorted there master hidden arts, alchemy that transmutes fear into strategy, enchantments that turn battlefields into illusions of peace. Or perhaps no houses at all, replaced by a unified magical curriculum where virtues overlap like the castle's shifting staircases. Gryffindor bravery fuels Hufflepuff endurance in marathons of transfiguration. Ravenclaw logic sharpens Slytherin guile in room-breaking duels. The Great Hall's tables form one endless circle, feasts prepared by Helga's recipes spiced with Salazar's fen-grown herbs, laughter echoing where rival chants once snarled. This alternate tapestry weaves stronger threads against the world's storms. The statute of secrecy holds firmer, enforced not by fearful isolation, but by a wizarding populace vast and integrated, their numbers swelled by every magical child welcomed from birth. Diagon Alley sprawls wider, its shops hawking wands attuned to mixed heritages, while Hogsmeade taverns host Muggle-born inventors, blending steam engines with levitation charms. Wars like Grindelwald's flicker out early, is pure-blood rhetoric laughed down by a society that sees purity as the true dilution of magic. Dumbledore might never need rise as a solitary beacon. Instead, a council of founder-descended heads guides the school, their artifacts, sword cup, diadem, locket, passed hand to hand across houses, each imbuing the bearer with balanced power. Yet even in this brighter path, echoes of tension linger, subtle as the forbidden forest's mist. Salazar's water element tempers the others, his resourcefulness a cool current beneath the fire, urging caution amid Godric's charges. Debates rage in common rooms that never fully split. Should ambition outpace loyalty? Does cunning eclipse creativity? These frictions hone the school sharper, producing wizards who navigate both light and shadow without falling to either. The basilisk's egg, perhaps, hatches not as a weapon but a guardian serpent patrolling the lake's depths, its gaze petrifying only true intruders. As the centuries unroll, this Hogwarts stands as Wizard Keen's unassailable heart, its founders' graves unmarked in the castle grounds, their spirits woven into every stone. No Horcruxes corrupt the relics. The sword cleaves curses in open duels. The diadem crowns scholars of all stripes. The cup overflows with elixirs for the weary. The wizarding world, free of blood purity's chains, strides into the modern age, allied closer to muggles, their technologies fused with spells that heal plagues and pierce stars. But what endures beyond even these what-ifs? Binding the founders across every timeline. Tune in next for Chapter 28, The Eternal Four, where their undying essence reveals secrets that outlast houses, relics and rifts themselves. Even as we linger on that shimmering what-if, where Salazar Slytherin never stormed out those ancient doors. The pull of the true story yanks us back, because the Founders' Saga isn't just history etched in stone. It's alive in every flickering torchlight of the Great Hall, every whisper of the Sorting Hat. Their real path, scarred by division, reveals something deeper than any perfect harmony could. Picture Godric Gryffindor, that lion-hearted wizard from the hollows of Godric's Hollow, striding through mist-shrouded glens with his sword at his side, its goblin-forged silver gleaming like captured moonlight. He dreamed of a school where any child with magic in their veins could claim their fire, no matter their blood or their fears. Beside him walked Helga Hufflepuff, her valley roots grounding her in the earth's quiet strength, her hands weaving charms that filled banqueting tables with feasts that warmed the soul as much as the stomach. She saw no hierarchy in talent, only hearts ready to labour and love. Then there was Rowena Ravenclaw, the Glen-born visionary, whose mind danced on winds of pure intellect, dreaming up the school's very name after a warty hog guided her to this cliffside sanctuary by the lake. Her diadem, lost to time and twisted ambition, once promised wisdom sharp as a raven's cry. And Salazar Slytherin, from the shadowy fens, his cunning carving hidden passages through the castle's bowels, his parcel tongue whispers summoning a basilisk to guard secrets only his heir could unlock. Water deep and treacherous, his ambition flowed like a river that could nourish or drown. For years, these four poured their genius into Hogwarts. Layer by stone-enchanted layer, moving staircases twisted at their command. The forbidden forest rustled with spells they tamed. The great lake mirrored their shared vision under enchanted skies. They sought out hidden magical children across a perilous Britain, snatching them from muggle torches and pitchforks, forging a refuge where spells could bloom unchecked. The Sorting Hat, born from Godric's battered old cap, brimmed with their collective knowing, his bravery, her loyalty, Rowena's wit, Salazar's guile, sorting souls into houses that echoed the elements themselves: fire, earth, air, water. But genius carries a weight that bends even the strongest spines. These weren't mere builders. They were titans wrestling eternity into form, and their brilliance invited shadows. Slytherin's scars from muggle cruelties ran too deep, twisting his resourcefulness into a pure blood creed. He demanded gates slammed shut on all but the worthy, his locket already heavy with unspoken curses. The others stood firm, Godric's fairness unyielding, Helga's justice boundless, Rowena's logic piercing the prejudice. Friendship frayed into fracture. Slytherin vanished into legend, leaving the Chamber of Secrets coiled beneath the school like a venomous promise. That betrayal echoes through centuries, doesn't it? Helga and Rowena, best friends whose loyalty outlasted the rift, their artifacts later clawed from graves by Voldemort's hunger. Helga's golden cup, Rowena's diadem, warped into vessels of his fractured soul. Godric's sword, pure and true, became the fang-piercing antidote, while Salazar locket drowned another life in its chains. The Founders' gifts meant for glory bore the curse of immortality's thieves. Yet here's the quiet fire that keeps this tale burning. It's binge-worthy, because it mirrors us all. Those universal threads, friendship's fierce forge, betrayal's bitter blade, the burden of genius that isolates even as it illuminates. Godric and Salazar started as comrades in arms, their rivalry sparking greatness until it scorched the bonds apart. Helga's unwavering heart held the group when egos clashed, but even she couldn't mend what pride had rent. Rowena's mind foresaw splendor, yet couldn't outthink the human heart's frailties. Their story grips because we've all tasted alliance's warmth, turning cold, the weight of our own talents pressing down like the castle's endless stones. And through it all, Hogwarts endures, not as a monument to their flaws, but a testament to their dreams' resilience. The houses clash and reconcile. Ghosts like nearly headless Nick and the fat friar whisper their founders' essences. The hat still sings their virtues. Rivalries fade into unity, as they did after the Battle of Hogwarts, Slytherin's stigma dissolving in shared survival. The relic's dark chapter closed with basilisk fang and sword, purging the corruption. Hogwarts will always be home to those who ask for it, you see. A child with a letter arrives trembling at the station, and the castle opens wide, staircases shifting to guide, feasts appearing in loyalty's name, wisdom waiting in every tower. No bloodline bars the door. It's the spark of magic that calls you in, wrapping you in fourfold embrace. The founders built more than walls. They wove a sanctuary that finds the lonely, steals the brave, welcomes the worthy. In a world still shadowed by division, it stands as proof. Genius burdened but unbroken, betrayal survived, friendship's embers eternally banked. Their echoes linger in every house point awarded, every Quidditch roar, every late night study by the fire. The Eternal Four didn't just shape the wizarding world, they etched its soul, inviting you to claim your place within it. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.